I'm going to call the May 2nd school board meeting to order. So we're first going to start with a moment of silence. Starting now. Okay, thank you. And then a pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Chair, do we have the roll? I'm sorry. We know who the real chair is here.
That's right, don't get it twisted.
Any questions on the proposed agenda? / motions on said agenda?
I move that we approve the proposed agenda.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? This is the opportunity now for comments from the public. We welcome public comments from members of the community. Speakers are encouraged to keep their comments to 3 minutes. Please clearly speak your name and address once you're up at the podium. The first and only person on the list currently is Ashlyn Chirix. I am sure I got that wrong and I apologize.
My name is Ashlyn Chirix, and I live at 2301 Angus Road. Good evening. My name is Ashlyn Chirix, and I'm a junior from Charlottesville High School. I'm here today as a member of Y Street. Y Street is the award-winning youth volunteer program of the Virginia Foundation for Healthy Youth that focuses on promoting a healthier Virginia. I'm here to talk about how Y Street's 24/7 campaign is partnering with Virginia school divisions adopt, implement, and enforce 100% comprehensive tobacco and e-cigarette-free school policies. Under 100% comprehensive policy, tobacco and e-cigarette use, possession and distribution is prohibited by anyone, anywhere, and at any time. In Charlottesville City, we have already shown a strong commitment to the health and safety of your school and community. Recently, in Virginia, a statewide comprehensive bill was passed to help make all schools in Virginia 100% free from all types of tobacco, and we are here to help develop a partnership so your policies reflect the changes to be made. In your folders, on the left-hand side, you will find copies of the current tobacco-free policies, in addition to a letter that outlines the revisions to become comprehensive. Some examples of those updates include removing the ability for designated smoking areas to be allowed on school property, strengthening the definition of tobacco products and tobacco use to include electronic vapor devices and products containing nicotine, extending the policy to include possession and distribution of tobacco products by students and minors, prohibiting the use and distribution of tobacco products containing nicotine and electronic smoking devices by staff, contractors, and visitors, whether on or off-site, and offering cessation referrals to staff and students who want to overcome tobacco addiction. I'm here to serve as a partner and resource to the Charlottesville City School Division as we continue to strengthen our commitment to healthy students in our school and community. Once you've decided to adopt a comprehensive policy, the 24/7 campaign has great ways to support implementing and enforcing the policy. First, we will provide free tobacco-free signage to all schools in your division. Second, our tobacco-free school and e-cigarette-free schools toolkit will be sent to all schools in your division. Third, we will help to spread word of the updates by holding a celebratory event in our school. On behalf of the 24/7 campaign, I thank you for allowing me to present at our school board meeting and to hopefully begin a partnership to ensure our school division is 100% comprehensive.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I appreciate your comments. Would any other member of the public like an opportunity to speak? Juan would like to go out of order.
If someone else wants to speak, as they're coming up, I just had a quick follow-up question is it Ashlyn?
Ashley.
You mentioned that as part of the resolution is to have contractors to prohibit smoking both on and off-site. Did I hear that correctly? Okay. So how would that work? Like they wouldn't, if they're off-site, is that?
Offsite events like prom, we had it at Pride Springs. That way they wouldn't be able to, or at sporting events.
Come up to the mic, sorry. Thank you.
Our prom was recently at Pride Springs, so it is off-site, but still the use of tobacco should not be used there. And also like our stadium is off campus, but it's still part of our school, and that should not be used there either. So all off-site events that the school holds, we should not use tobacco.
That was a very good answer. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you clarifying that. Any other members of the community like an opportunity to speak at this point? Great. We're going to move on the agenda to staff and student recognitions. Dr. King?
Good evening, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Atkins. May 6th through the 10th is designated as National Teacher Appreciation Week. To honor Charlottesville City School teachers, I will read a proclamation from our Governor, Governor Northam. Whereas strong and effective public schools are essential to the economic prosperity of Virginia and ensure that we continue to make social, technological, and scientific advances, and whereas qualified, dedicated teachers are critical to the success of our students and are fundamental to the strength of our Commonwealth, and whereas Virginia teachers are entrusted with helping our students reach their full academic potential and exhibit an unwavering devotion to student success, and whereas teachers are essential to empowering families and communities to support our children and their potential to achieve, and whereas the Virginia Lottery, the source of nearly $8 billion for public schools since 1999, is partnering with the Virginia Tourism Corporation and the Virginia PTA for the 3rd annual Thank a Teacher campaign to encourage Virginians to send thank you notes to teachers across the Commonwealth. And whereas Teacher Appreciation Week is an opportunity for Virginians to join with the teachers around the country on the critical role our teachers play in shaping our children and the future of the Commonwealth. Now, therefore, I, the Governor, Ralph Northam, do hereby recognize May 6th through 10th, 2019 as Teacher Appreciation Week in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and he claims the observance to the attention to all citizens. So if you will please join me in giving a round of applause for all our teachers for all their dedication to our students.
Maybe Dr. King, we could have all the teachers who are currently in the audience, which we have not invited them to come, but they're always welcome to come. But I just want to say that in case, we don't have that many, but hi, Mr. Grady, thank you. We're so grateful for you. Hey, welcome, thank you. Anybody else? We're happy to have you, and really,
Rachel.
yes. Anybody else? Because we can individually recognize all the teachers. Obviously, we cannot do this work without our teachers, and we're so grateful to have you, and thank you again for taking time tonight to come to our school board meeting as well. Is this something that we need to do as a motion, or are we this is just a recognition? Okay. Great. So,
Ms. McKeever.
Dr. Atkins.
I also want to echo Ms. McKeever and say thank you to all of our teachers. We have goodies coming to you next week, but thank you for all of the work that you do the 24/7 work that you do on so many nights and so many weekends. So thank you, and thank you for the influence that you have on our students in our community. You are much appreciated.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Dr. King, is there something else?
Yes, Madam Chair. It is also National Nurses Week, May 6th through May 12th. Governor Northam has established May 8th as Nurse Day in Virginia. To honor our Charlottesville school nurses, I will read the proclamation from Governor Northam. Whereas there are more than 109,000 dedicated registered nurses in the Commonwealth of Virginia, and whereas the registered nursing profession meets the emerging healthcare needs of Virginia's citizens in a wide range of settings, and whereas a professional nursing is an indispensable component in the safety and quality of care of hospitalized patients, and whereas the demand for registered nursing services will be greater than ever because of the growing population. And whereas more qualified registered nurses will be needed in the future to meet the increasingly complex needs of healthcare consumers. And whereas the Virginia Nurses Association, along with the American Nurses Association, has declared the week of May 6th through May 12th as National Nurses Week in celebration of the over 4 million nurses who protect and promote the health of their communities nationwide. Now, therefore, our Governor Northam does hereby recognize May 6th through 12th as Virginia Nurses Week and in our Commonwealth of Virginia, and he calls the observance to the attention of all citizens. If we could, I just want to take a moment to say the names of our school nurses.
Dr. King? Just so you know, one of them is Jody and not June.
Yes, she has, her official name is June, but we do call her Jody. Thank you so much.
I don't want to get that wrong. Okay, thank you.
For Roy Moran, is Sherry Eichert. Clark Elementary School, Amy Shawan. Greenbrier Elementary School, Ellen Muller and June Estein, or Jody. At Jackson Villa, Dee Bell or Marisha Bell. Also at Johnson, it is Amy Petner. The nurse at Venable, Amy White. For Walker, the nurse is Kathy Jones. Buford Middle School, the nurse is Ronetta Jackson. For Charlottesville High School, two nurses, Ann Sandridge and Gary Chauvin. If you'll please join me in a round of applause for all that they do for us.
Can we ask if there are any nurses?
I didn't see any, but absolutely.
Great. Again, they do a very important work, and we're so grateful for their work every day.
Absolutely.
And it's extraordinary, the amount of work that they have to do just to get ready for field trips.
I'd also like to echo that. Thank you to our nurses. They do a tremendous amount of work each day. And they actually run a mini doctor's office in our school each day, and we just say thank you to all of our nurses and the impact that you have on students and our community. We much appreciate you also.
Thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you.
Dr. Atkins had a comment, again, on Teacher Appreciation Week, if the board doesn't mind. We're back to that.
We have, we've taken pictures of our teachers, and we'd like to show each school in the group picture of our teachers at each school. Nice way to not have them to show up tonight for the board meeting, but we absolutely can acknowledge them through our photographs.
Is there music?
Would be nice.
Ms. Brenda Moran?
Dr. King, would you announce those groups, please?
In between the thumbs.
Absolutely. For Brian Moran Elementary School, some of our teachers are photographed there. Next, we have Clark Elementary School, home of the bees. Greenbrier, I don't know where I got general from. Greenbrier Elementary School, home of the Reading Stars. Jackson Villa Elementary School, the Jackrabbits. Johnson Elementary School, Learning Leopards. Venable Elementary School, they are the All-Stars. Walker Elementary School, they are the Wolverines. And the Trojans, Beaufort Middle School. I thought I would hear a little bit of cheer in the audience there. For any of the schools, you all are very quiet. Charlottesville, Black Knights. And we have Lugard McGinnis Academy. Wonderful. Thank you for doing the photos. We appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay, we're going to move on to the comments from the board members. I'm going to start with Mr. Mickey.
Nothing to report.
Mr. Bryant?
I want to again reiterate and congratulate all of our committed and outstanding teachers. Congratulations. And also our wonderful, wonderful, caring and compassionate nurses. Congratulations to all of you.
Dr. Kraft?
Well, I'd like to thank everybody for coming. It's really nice to see all of you out there and interested in what we're doing. So I really appreciate it, especially our young people. I don't know if it's a requirement for you to come or you just came because you wanted to, but we're happy to have you here. I wanted to mention just a few things that I've been doing related to our school division. So for one, I've been asked to join the education committee of the Paramount Theater, and the reason I was interested in that is because they're really very involved in arts education in the community, and that's something that I care a lot about. So they put on a lot of programs for school children, not just Charlottesville, Albemarle, but regionally. And so I will have a voice in talking about what kinds of arts programming we'd like our kids to be exposed to. And so I'm excited about that. I attended the annual Breakfast for Ready Kids, which is an organization in the community that supports many of our families and really has wonderful services available in the community, and we're lucky to have them and be able to work with them. I was also fortunate to be able to attend the Emily Corrick Leadership Luncheon, which honors outstanding young women who have shown exceptional leadership, and I was so proud that the honoree this year is our own Ziana Bryant, and we're so proud of you, Ziana. Really. It's really great, and what a great representative for our whole school division. I attended a committee meeting for the Black Male Alliance, and I also attended a conference of Virginia School Boards Association on school safety, along with Ms. Powell. And it's something that we, of course, all need to be paying attention to on an ongoing basis. As school board members, we need to be kind of up to speed on what we are doing now, and as we plan for some new building and new, sort of reconfiguration of our schools, what do we want to make sure that we know and understand about school safety up front? So that was really helpful. And I did a couple of really fun things, the most fun things I did. One was that I helped to enroll new 3-year-old families into our preschool program, and that was really fun. And I learned about toileting and toilet training, and what does it mean to be fully potty trained, or not fully potty trained. It was fun. And another favorite event for me is our City School Yard Garden program, our Golden Trowel Awards, annual awards, and I had the best tour guides. I had 2 girls from Greenbrier giving me an amazing tour of their garden and teaching me a lot of things. And finally, tomorrow, actually, I'm attending, there's it's called the Middle Grades Working Group at UVA, which is taking a look at middle school and how we can make middle school work better for everybody, for the kids and for the staff, and just understanding a lot of things about adolescent development and about learning and about, engagement. And so this particular meeting tomorrow is going to be on school climate and culture in the middle school. So I'm looking forward to that. And that's it.
So I have attended several PEF functions, and as you may know, PEF is a joint venture between the Charlottesville City and Albemarle County Schools, and it's the Public Education Foundation. This year, we are once again hosting our one-week STEAM camp at EVA at Rice Hall, and I want to say thank you to Dr. Larry Richards, who is a retired professor of the School of Engineering at UVA, and we would like to say thank you to all of the parents and students and families that have worked to submit their documentation in order that we have another great year. And so we will have 15 students from the city and 15 students from the county for 1 week. I am hoping that all of our school board members, if you are around on July 22nd, can join Dr. Richards and myself and the students to watch them kick off this really fun event. The other activity that we're doing with PEF is our 5K walk. That's right, walk, run activity that's going to be held later this fall. And this is a way that we are trying to encourage our school divisions, faculty, staff, administrators, and anyone that falls within both divisions to begin our health and wellness initiative, because we can't ask others to be healthy if we don't do it ourselves. So we will be walking the walk for that particular activity. I am also a member of the City of Promise Board, and we would like to say how proud we are of the students, parents, and families in the footprint, and the tremendous strides that they have made academically, not only for the students, but for the families as well. And we are very excited that we are going to continue to do positive work. We are doubly excited that our current executive director is taking a leap in order to come to the city school division and help us with our equity concerns. But we want everyone that is within listening earshot or watching on TV that the City of Promise is alive, well, and we will continue to do the work that has been set out for us to do. Ms. Johnson left us with a great succession plan, and we are going to roll up our sleeves and do the work that needs to be done. Lastly, I was honored to have received an invitation from someone who knows our student rep to ask me if I would sit at her table. And I sat with Zayana's godfather, I believe, one or two of her relatives, and two people that were on the pilgrimage when she went this summer. And I would like to say to Zayana, I was very honored that you thought enough of me to ask me to sit at that table. It meant more than you will ever know. And I would like for you to know that you, Zayana Bryant, have knocked it out of the park. You have done what we ask all students to do. You have put the work in, and you have netted the results. You are onward and upward to greater things. Remember from whence you came. Remember, your elders are always a phone call, a tweet, or a text away. And if you remember those things and follow your heart, you will be whatever it is you set out to be. And thank you again for the invitation.
Thank you. Ms. Perrier. I'll have Mr. Wade go next to follow that.
Thanks, Leah. So I just want to share, I just want to spend a few minutes to talk about some of the things I've been doing over the last month or so. Leah and I, we both, and many of us serve on several scholarship committees and Charlottesville Scholarship Program, Grace Tinsley, and 100 Black Men of Central Virginia. And I just wanted to say that I'm in awe as I read the applications of the students who are taking rigorous classes, have high GPAs, and working 20 to 25 hours a week to get the extra things that I think some of us take for granted. And it was so ironic that the same time that I was reading these essays, and it's the same time that the scandal about colleges has come out, where people were paying hundreds of thousands. I just heard today someone paid $6.5 million to get into Stanford. And I mean, and these students are really working hard to get $5,000-$6,000, and this is why the work that we're doing on equity and things are so important. But I'm so proud of the students that will be getting scholarships, and we set it up so that they get a certain amount the first year and increase the second year and third year. So we wish we could do more of that. And also had the opportunity to visit Clark, Venable, and Johnson schools. That's always just a joy and a pleasure to visit the various schools and see the parents, the students throughout those schools. I had a meeting with the class, which is the after school and before school activities program. And I think we'll be getting a report soon from them if we haven't already. Had a great interview today with Ms. Clemens. She's a great student. I think we talked, she'll be going to roll out in School of Design, just great, but she had some great questions of me about the school board and what we're doing. I had an all-day training for traumatic informed care in Richmond, and just amazing stats on the impact of some thing that happened to us in the past, and that if we don't deal with it, the impact it will have on us today. So it was just really powerful to be there with almost 1,000 other caregivers from around the state on that. Wanted to let you know that on May the 14th, there's going to be a KTAC kind of signing event. We know right now a lot is going on with people signing what schools they're going to, but at KTAC they're going to be signing for those who may not be going to college, but will be signing with very companies around towns where they'll be making good money, but be getting trained in a certain trade, will be making really good money, have really stable careers in the future. So I always look forward to that. That's May 14th at KTAC at 6:30. And my day job is I'm a career counselor, and today I was inspired talking to a student. She finished Charlottesville High School 2 years ago. She finished Lugo McGinnis, and she said I look familiar. I said I probably shook her hand when you crossed the stage, but she came in needing help with her resume, and we talked about references and things, and she immediately had a smile on her face and talked about the two people that she were former teachers, as we talk about the role of teachers, that she would use and that she's still in contact with. So again, I want to thank the teachers for the impact that they have and they continue to have in our students' lives. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wade. Ms. Torres?
Some good stuff there, Mr. Wade. Thank you for sharing. Again, thank you everybody who showed up tonight. Thank you for the comments earlier on the tobacco-free program. A couple of things that I've done since the last meeting is attend Housing Advisory Committee. Also attended, really enjoyed every year there's a celebration of fellows with the African American Teaching Fellows, so there's the opportunity to highlight and celebrate the teachers that are in Charlottesville City Schools and the counties as they have completed their first year. And there were 4 fellows this year that we celebrated, and we had Arlette Mandula from Buford. All 4 of these ladies that
participated in the celebration were just so impressive, strong, powerful messages, powerful presence, and their passion for what they do in the classroom was just so evident. So it was really wonderful, and really grateful to have Ms. Dandula at Buford. Had the opportunity my first year on the board to walk in and spend a few minutes in her classroom, and was so impressed with the activity and how she was engaging the students at the time. So that was a great opportunity. Attended our Special Ed Advisory Committee meeting, last one for this year. We have some great things kind of in the works for next year, so kind of stay tuned, but the group that met had some great ideas and thoughts about how to, and we're always looking to try and increase parent involvement and increase the opportunities for different parents throughout the division to attend these meetings, and that's always a challenge. We've done early morning meetings. This year we did 5:30 meetings, and next year what the committee is hoping to do, and they're reaching out to different elementary schools, and we're going to spread out the meetings throughout the division to different locations, just to try and increase opportunity and equity as far as people being able to attend. So that was kind of really exciting, and so stay tuned for that. Also wanted to just make note and offer to all administration and school board members that today is one of 2 days for the seedling giveaway for the city schoolyard gardens. So I went ahead, Jeanette brought them over, but I purchased some tomato plants for everybody if you would like a tomato plant. So please grab one and take one home. And I think that's it for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Torres. Ms. Bryant?
Okay. Hi, everyone. Yeah, I'm just, we have AP tests next week, so that's where my brain is. But I see that there are some seniors in the room, so yesterday was National Decision Day for seniors to decide what they're doing after college, be it like a trade school, work, or college. So I know this is kind of informal, but if there are seniors in the room who are deciding or have decided where they're going next year, I'd like you guys to stand so that everyone can clap for you because you've worked so hard. Woo! Yay! Actually, everyone that said is a member of the BSU and is going to college next year, so I'm so excited for everyone. And my next announcement is kind of switching gears, but in regards to the Jefferson School African American Heritage Center is seeking students to apply to become trailblazers. Yes, I told you I was going to plug it. So I was a trailblazer in 2017, and it was a great experience. You get to lead tours, you get to take like a personal class with Dr. Douglas, who actually has a degree in art history, so you get to learn how to look into art and do research and all of that. So it's a great experience. It's good for your resume, but it's also just cool to meet new people from around the area who are also trailblazers, and you get to volunteer for special events and things like that. So please look into that. You can find it on the Jefferson School's website. They have a link right there where you can apply, and I would highly recommend it. And it's paid, so you get money. It's not free labor, so definitely do that. And then I guess my last announcement is that the Charlottesville Youth Council is here today to present, and I'm really excited to hear everything that they have to say. I'm a member of the Youth Council, and I'll definitely be cheering for everything they say because I've helped them do the focus groups. But I will say that the Buford students and the CHS students that participated in our focus groups were really thoughtful, and so I hope that today when they present that you really listen and tune in and just take consideration to what they're saying. So thank you, Youth Council, for being here, and that's all I have.
Thank you, Ms. Bryant. I really appreciate you, the way you've stepped up in being a student school board rep. I think you're going to be a tough act to follow, but it's certainly a great example and model for future school board student members. And so I hope some of those current youth council who are here today will consider that in the future and also be looking to Ms. Bryant for a great example of how to be a good student school board member. Thank you. And I think this is your last school board meeting? Because you're graduating next time. That's very exciting. But, so I'm sure we'll all have much more to say later on in the meeting about how grateful we are for your service. Thank you. Wow. Now we're on to the adoption of the consent agenda.
Move for approval?
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Great. Next item is the Special Education Annual Plan Part B flow-through application for 2019-20. Dr. King.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Atkins. Last month, you had the opportunity to have discussion about the annual plan for next school year. Tonight, I bring it forward again, requesting approval.
Thank you, Dr. King. Anybody have a motion?
Approval.
Any discussion on the annual plan?
That's changed?
From last month?
Anything that is changed that we should know about?
The supports are for salaries, instructional materials, test evaluations, so it falls similar to last year.
Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Great.
So agreeable.
Thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is the Youth Council recommendations on equity. Ms. Chuck?
Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm just here for a quick introduction and a super brief overview of the process. As you recall, throughout the fall and winter and early spring, we did a lot of listening in different forums, at schools, at churches, and different places. And the Charlottesville Youth Council did us the favor of conducting some focus groups in conjunction with friends from the city, and that would be Gretchen Ellis, Daniel Fairley, and Charlene Green. I think Daniel and Gretchen are here with us tonight. So we just want to say thank you for the work they did in conducting those focus groups, in going through the feedback, and presenting their recommendations tonight. One final thing, we did pass these, we have folded these ideas into that ongoing document of those 32-plus ideas that have come from the community, and created some columns so that folks can see which ideas sort of were endorsed by students through this focus group process, and also just added some of the comments into that section and added some new ideas that maybe weren't there. So we're trying to listen to new feedback and also just make it digestible as an entire piece of community feedback. So thank you very much, and I will leave it on to the students now.
Thank you, Ms. Chuck.
Hi, Dr. Atkins and members of the board. My name is LaAsia, and I'm a senior at Charlottesville High School. And right here behind me are members of the Youth City Council, and we're presenting issues and suggestions of the school system. And the topics are a strong focus on four-year colleges, course knowledge and registration, lunch, demystifying college admissions, lack of diversity in advanced courses, standard diploma versus advanced diploma, standardizing testing, ESL student experience, the QUEST program, algebra functions and data analysis course, and the BSU demands. And the first issue is a strong focus on four-year colleges. The first issue is we need more advertisement to know who is responsible for letting students know about after graduation options at CHS. And then the four-year colleges are seen as the only option for CHS. And some of the suggestions for that is to let students know that there is a non-college trade school coach to guide students to take advantage of local job opportunities, and to increase the number of Kids Tech options available at CHS so students won't have to go off-site. And then the second topic is course knowledge and registration.
So we have four main issues for the course knowledge registration. First one being...
Mr. Yates, would you mind introducing yourself?
Yeah, sorry. I'm Ben Yates. Nice to meet you guys. So like a lack of knowledge for the available courses, kind of a vagueness about what actually is available for students to take, and then there is a little bit, but pretty ineffective long-term planning starting in middle school and then on through high schools. and then teacher recommendations are just taken too high regard and are too difficult to change. And then the last one being students are not really encouraged to take challenging classes a lot of times. Teachers actually encourage them to take lower level classes rather than challenge themselves. And so our suggestions were create an individualized plan for each student starting in Buford that is then revisited in a portfolio each year so that we can figure out basically, okay, where do you want to be at the end of high school, and then actually track that all 4 years and then adapt that plan to changing interests and topics and what you want to do. And then our second suggestion was a survey for parents to basically figure out what would be the most effective way to actually communicate at an earlier age, starting at elementary school, what you need to do to take have the prerequisites for things like AP courses all the way through college. And then our suggestion was decrease the weight of teacher recommendations so that students can challenge themselves as they feel driven to. And the last one was increase support for students taking AP honors classes, such as more tutoring programs or more awareness of tutoring programs that are already in place, such as students who are challenging themselves taking those classes have support for that. Our next topic is school lunches. And we have 4 issues again, and there are some students don't eat lunch because there are only pork options left, and then also that kind of goes along with that is that students who eat a halal diet can't have dairy and meat in the same meal. And so there aren't as many options for students who follow that diet. And then there's also a perception that you can only eat pepperoni if you get pepperoni pizza if you're on a free reduced lunch, and the athletes don't find lunches fulfilling enough. So if you're playing varsity sports and you get school lunch, it's pretty hard to go out and play the sports on what you eat. So our suggestions were to have water as an option for lunch, not just milk, make more cheese pizzas and non-pork options, and take pepperonis out of the salads, because if you get a salad, you have to have pepperoni in it. And also label the food ingredients so that when you're ordering your food, you actually know what's in your food according to your diet restrictions. And then also make lunches more fulfilling, nutritious, and survey the students to see what they actually would prefer to eat. And then clearly label what costs money and what doesn't.
Hi, I'm Eve Kiesecker. I'm a freshman here at CHS. And my first topic is to talk about demystifying college admissions. So most of this is just making sure that the students are prepared for going into college admissions and knowing that they have support from school counselors that are up to date on what the admission process is. I think that there are some students that have false beliefs about the college admission process. At CHS we have a weighted GPA, but for the Common App you need an unweighted GPA, and I think a lot of students aren't really aware of what that is, and how many AP courses are taken versus what is available is taken into account when you're applying for college, how to write a good essay, how to know what you're supposed to say and what looks good and how to explain everything, which AP scores are accepted, which AP scores will help you get into college, and the rate of SAT or ACT scores that colleges take into account. So some of our suggestions are to have an admission counselor available or come to talk to juniors and seniors, even rising juniors, sophomores, I guess, and talk to avid teachers about admission guidelines like yearly so they're up to date and they can keep the information flowing to students, and to also have a current or former admission counselor come in to talk about the behind the scenes of the admissions process. My next topic is the lack of diversity in AP classes at CHS. So we have 3 main issues. A lot of the perception is that many white students that are in Quest or POCs, and people of color are not in Quest, and in Charlottesville City Schools there are like 2 pathways. So if you're in Quest you go to honors classes and then AP classes and you go to college, and then people that haven't been in Quest don't go to, well, they don't not go to college, but they could go to academic classes, and then they're less likely to I'm sorry, I'm so bad about my words, go to a standard diploma, and then they're not on track for a a four-year college, I guess. Our other issue is that a lot of the students take the same courses with the same people, kindergarten through 12th grade, so people that we test for the Quest program in first grade, which is a little bit early. So a lot of these students, they take Quest and then they go to Walker and then in the honors classes with the same people, and so it's segregating our students just because they've been in these classes with the same people for such a long time that they don't really want to go out of their comfort zone. And then our other issue is that there's not very much academic support for students in AP or honors classes. So people that are taking an AP class for the first time, if you don't take AP Human Geo in your freshman year or your sophomore year, and then you jump into AP World, I think AP Human is one of the easier AP classes, so then you jump into AP World and it's a bit overwhelming. So some of our suggestions are to have AP tutors or peer navigators to help with those subjects, and to allow for students to try more AP classes and create like a pathway for the advanced classes like that, and to encourage everyone to take at least one honors class in each subject to help them see their potential, and also take away standalone honors classes to help diversify classes. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Harrison Greenhoe, and my first topic is the standard diploma versus the advanced diploma. There are a lot of questions around the actual purpose of the two diplomas, like the difference between each of them, because a lot of students don't actually know the difference. And some students don't know if you can get accepted into college with a standard diploma instead of an advanced. And there's also the question of what is required to actually get an advanced diploma. And people also ask, do colleges clear what diploma you actually receive? Our suggestions for this are that the school board should advocate at the General Assembly to eliminate the diplomas because it makes a unnecessary binary. Another suggestion is to explain the differences between the diplomas to Buford students and parents before they come to high school. And our last suggestion is to have an individualized plan with each student, maybe at when they're doing their course suggestions and stuff and they're selecting their classes, to meet with them about what they need to get the diploma they want so they can have a pathway to get where they want to be. And then the next topic is standardized testing. One of the issues is that some teachers only teach to the SOL and that students don't actually learn critical thinking skills in those classes. And the other issue is that there are no prep classes for tests like the PSAT, SAT, ACT, and so people are a lot of times not ready for those tests. A suggestion would be to advocate for the elimination of the SOLs on the state and federal level, and also to provide free PSAT, SAT, ACT, and AP prep courses for students so they can be ready for the test when it comes to the time to do them. Our last suggestion would be to create a school-wide, division-wide mantra about critical thinking, so students don't just know straight facts, but they know how to solve problems that are actually real world. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Margaret Andoran, and our next topic is about the ESL student experience. Many ESL students don't feel integrated, respected, or heard by administration and teachers during their time at CHS, and they also feel segregated and separate from the other CHS students. As me and a lot of my friends have noticed, they really stay in one corner in a hallway, and we don't really see them outside of that. So our suggestions for this, for them to feel more heard and respected at the school, are to have cultural sensitivity training for administration and teachers, just so they know what's okay and what's not okay and how they should treat people from a different culture. And also to increase the awareness and use of translation services. So for more day-to-day needs, we can have in-person translators, like for class registration, for example. And for more personal matters, there are phone translation services, but they aren't widely used and they aren't widely known of. And lastly, to just find creative ways for ESL students to be integrated with everybody so they don't feel as separate from the student body. And the next topic is the Quest program. So the Quest program the main issue is that it's simply biased towards wealthy and white students, and it gives first graders an unfair advantage over their peers. And it creates a separate pathway, so people that are in Quest most always take honors option classes, then they take honors, then they take AP. And that leads them on to an advanced diploma. Whereas people who aren't in Quest are usually not recommended for honors classes going into Walker and Buford, and that puts them behind. It can lead them onto a different track that they should not necessarily be on. And lastly, Quest was created after desegregation simply to separate white kids from kids of color, which should be changed. So our suggestions are to simply eliminate the program because it really doesn't measure giftedness, and it creates an unnecessary pipeline, an unnecessary binary, and it creates a stigmatization against students, and also to raise awareness of the Quest program to parents, starting with kindergarten registration so they know that they can prepare their kids by, if they really want them to be in the program, or just so that they know what's expected of them, how their kids will be treated once they get into elementary school. Also, to stop the testing in first grade, because that's awfully early, and to lastly have ongoing testing for Quest for all students for all grades, so that if they didn't make it their first year, they have another opportunity in second grade. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Noah Morris, and I'm going to talk about algebra functions and data analysis course. So AFDA can take students a year behind in math courses, which can inhibit their ability to be on track for college. Algebra functions and data analysis has no high school credit for taking that class. So here are some suggestions. Make AFDA a free summer course so students won't feel behind for the school year. And provide tutoring services for students when they get to Algebra 2 instead of in addition to recommend them to AFDA. So here are some demands made from the BSU. So the first one is Charlottesville City Schools denounce and call out racism against black and brown students. African American history class to hold the same weight as any other honors history course, and not just have it as an elective. Hire more black teachers, especially in core classes. Extend resources in addition to AVID for future black and brown first generation college students. The discipline reform, end the excessive suspending and policing of black middle and high school students for creating a diverse governing board of staff, students, and parents to oversee equitable and effective discipline. Test every student for Quest. Apply mental health practices that are culturally relevant and racially aware. A high standard for programming associated with Black history. No one should have the opportunity to opt out of Black history. Racial bias and cultural sensitivity training for all school resource officers. Implement the same locked door and buzzer system currently used in elementary schools at Walker, Buford, and Charlottesville to ensure the safety of the student body as a whole and staff. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. So thank you so much. Those are really helpful suggestions and issues. So I really personally appreciate you all, the time that you took to create those, create this presentation, and I am really grateful for your energy behind these issues. I feel like, just as myself, anytime students come to us, we really want to hear what you have to say. So thank you. I would love to kind of also acknowledge Mr. Farley. Thank you. And Gretchen Ellis. And kind of open it up for a discussion or questions that the board might have. So I guess we can start on this end, if that would be okay, unless there's somebody who would like to jump in to start. Okay. Anybody over here?
Why don't you start with Zion and then go around?
Ms. Bryant?
All right.
If you have any thoughts or questions?
So first, thank you for the presentation. It was amazing, and it was very straight to the point, so thank you for that.
I guess not really a question, but a comment, is that today Dr. I told me that the AFDA summer coursing is going to be offered this summer. Is it? Okay. So that's one thing that's already in action, which is cool.
For me, that's great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's a great suggestion, I think.
Yeah. And then I guess another comment would be like, how can we present some type of timeline so that we can make sure that these things are being done? And I guess that's a question not only for the students, but also for the board, just for the purposes of accountability, so that next year around this same time, we're not having the same exact conversation again. And aside from just appointing a new, committee, how can we have very concrete deadlines so that the community can also check in and say, okay, it's been 3 months, how can we, what's going on with that issue? I think that that's going to be really important moving forward, because we have a lot of solutions on the table and a lot of proposals and presentations, but we have to have some type of timeline. As for any student that's taking a class, we have deadlines, and so I think it's important that we try to think about that today and any other day moving forward. Thank you.
I think we will be discussing specific recommendations, y'all's specific recommendations at our retreat. Hopefully, I have an update from Dr. Atkins on the specific recommendations that you all have made, and and talk about anything that might be a barrier to any of the suggestions that you might have had. So that's my understanding from my incredibly limited discussion with you.
Madam Chair, Ms. McKeever, thank you to the Youth Council. You've done an amazing job gathering information and then synthesizing that information to give a very comprehensive and a very clear report on what you see as the issues, and I really appreciate you making the recommendations on how we can address those issues. And thank you to the Youth Council. You presented these to me during one of your meetings, and I really appreciate the dialogue that we had at that time. Many of these issues are already underway. Your suggestions have been phenomenal. The lunch and the concern about the lunch, actually, Dr. I and I walked to the cafeteria, and we took a look at, and we had some of our staff to take a look at the cafeteria line and some of the issues that you've raised there. So some corrective action is already underway. I do want to make it clear, though, that for our students who receive free or reduced price lunch, they are not limited to the items that they can receive. I think that the confusion comes in the way we had it organized on the serving line. So that was one of the things that we decided needed to be changed, so it's more prominent and more instructions on what options are available to all students. So thank you for that. Great job. We look forward to these changes, making our school, not only Charlottesville High School, but from preschool all the way through, a culture in which all of our students will thrive, all of our students will feel an important part of the teaching and learning process. And from the day they enter our school system, they will start thinking about where they will go, which college or which post-secondary experience they will be involved in. I love the idea of petitioning the State Department of Education to start discussing the standard and the advanced studies diploma and how we might merge those two diplomas so there's no confusion amongst students nor amongst our parents and our community. So again, thank you. Thank you, Ms. Bryant. You've done a great job. The entire Youth Council, thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Gretchen, for being a part of this process. We really appreciate it.
I just want to also add that if there's any other comments from Mr. Wade or Ms. Torres around this side?
You go ahead.
Just also wanted to express my gratitude. Very impressed with the list, and again, appreciate the suggestions. It's always so helpful to come with suggestions and some really meaningful ones, and so it's very apparent that you guys put some thought into this, and as far as things that we look forward to taking some action on. Ms. Bryant, great point. I think we had that conversation, I forgot to mention, at our equity meeting yesterday. We did have the opportunity to review these, and a similar conversation about all of these wonderful concerns and suggestions, and what is the best way to communicate when actions are happening. And so I think we're still trying to figure out that. But at any point in time, like with the AFDA and with the lunch situation, so when it's become apparent to you that things are changing and shifting, spread the word, because we need your help and we appreciate your voices. So thank you.
Yeah, I just had a couple of comments, and it's kind of referring to what you all were talking about, and that is, for younger people, what is the best way? Is it, I know for some of my mentees, texting is the best way. Forget email, and I know Facebook is how you all keep up with what your grandparents are doing. So, I mean, so I have two questions. One is, what is the best way for us because as I saw some of these recommendations, I think that some of those things are going on in the school, but you guys are probably not hearing about it, and that's our problem. We need to make sure you hear about it. And secondly, as you all had these focus group, was there one issue that just kind of popped out over and over again? I would like to hear from someone what maybe that is, because all these recommendations and topics are good, but it was one that just kept coming up over and over again.
So for your question right there, the lack of diversity in advanced and AP classes, and then the lack of knowledge about what prerequisites you need to have, and then what classes you need to take to get advanced and standard diploma were the things that really just kept coming up in each classes that we facilitated. And then in terms of what would be the best way to communicate different events and programs to students would most likely be announcements before school and after school, and then Instagram is what most kids are. Is what? Instagram. Well, that's what they see. You can't hear either.
So I'm just, as far as the AP courses, and I heard, one of your recommendations, you talked about that we should start in the elementary school, but, I can tell you that we get just as many comments from parents and students that it's too much pressure, it's too much, too much AP. So, I'll be reluctant to stretch it down to start telling kids in elementary school that you have to do this, because it's too much pressure on the kids already. I don't know where the balance is, but I can tell you I would not support any type of push down at the elementary school about AP classes and things like that. But I'm just one vote. But I know that I get a lot of comments from parents in the grocery stores, in the street, that is, that it's really too much pressure on them for these advanced classes, and, a lot of it is trying to keep up with their peers. So this is just a balancing act that we as a school board and we as a community as well going to have to grapple with, where is that balance? So that was just kind of a comment. I don't know.
Ms. McKeever.
Thank you, Ms. Wright. Dr. Atkins?
Mr. Wade, that was one of the discussions that we had, and I think, Ben, you weighed in very heavily on that, cutting back on the AP classes. Would you share that with the board, your comments about what you thought about AP classes? We talked about decreasing the number that we offered, and talked about how would you feel if there was a cap put on the number of AP classes you could take?
Yeah, so when we discussed that, the way I kind of felt about it was we shouldn't be focusing on limiting the opportunities for our students, but more the support we have for our students taking those classes. And so if students want to push themselves, we shouldn't limit how far they can push themselves, but instead increase the support we have for those students who do want to push themselves academically.
Thank you.
That's very helpful, thank you. Ms. Perea? Sorry, Dr. Kraft.
Okay, Ms. Bryant, I thought we were buds. You're trying to eliminate my job with all of these recommendations, but that's okay. I'm up for the challenge. One of the things I'd like to say to all of the members of the Youth Council and the members of BSU, because I believe it was a joint effort that all of these things occurred, was one of the things that I've always tried to teach my students in Upward Bound is that if you have a concern, to express the concern, but bring to me solutions. And you have brought solutions. Some of those solutions are within our purview and some of them are not. And whether we communicate with you via Twitter or Instagram, because I do both, we will report back probably to the students if you on Youth Council have an Instagram or Twitter page and present something to Mr. Farley and to Ms. Ellis, because I believe most of you may be seniors, or if you're not seniors, you're juniors. Are you juniors? One senior? Good. Oh, wonderful. So you will be hearing from us because we're going to look at everything seriously. And as I said earlier, the things that we can do, we will. The things that are just out of our purview that we can't, we will explain to you why. And so I never want any student to feel that we don't listen to them, because you are people. You have feelings, and your feelings are your feelings, and your feelings are valid. Whether people understand why you feel the way you feel and why you do what you do is something that we all need to work on. And as a person who works with high school students, I am very, very impressed. And so thank you.
Dr. Kraft?
So, just sort of along the same lines, I'm thinking a lot about follow-up. And, I am also really impressed with the work that you've done. And I think we need you to be part of the process in following up on these suggestions so that it's not just coming to us, we fix it all and then present it to you. I think we kind of need your voices to be part of an ongoing process. And so I'm wondering how that might best happen. So I'm just putting that out there. I don't know that you know the answer to that, but I think in order for us to really be working together as a community, we need you to be constantly giving us feedback and reacting to what we're doing and where we're taking things.
And I'll respond to that briefly. Only one of these young people is graduating, LaAsia, so the rest will be back, along with some other folks who were not able to be here today. Youth Council takes the summer off because they're all very busy, but we'll be reconvening in September, and I think it would make sense maybe for either Dr. Atkins or a member or to the school board to come to an early meeting next fall and talk about how we can continue this. I will tell you that I sat in on 9 of the 25 focus groups. And
25?
Yeah. And so they're speaking for a whole bunch of students, both at CHS and at Buford. And I thought it was one of the most powerful experiences I've had. And I would, with Dr. I and Dr. Atkins' approval, we would love to try to do that again sometime during the next school year to get feedback from more than just the 15 or 16 kids on Youth Council.
Great. Thanks.
I also want to encourage y'all to work with our student school board reps to facilitate the communication. I think it's really been helpful to have Ms. Bryant, who has been a member and is current a member of the Youth Council, to be on the school board. So to encourage y'all to apply to be student members of the school board.
Your other rep is also on Youth Council.
Cool, great. So yes, so it's been very helpful to have that relationship, and also just kind of keeps us focused on specific student issues, which I appreciate. And I hope that, some of these items we'll be talking about at the retreat and on future agendas.
Yeah, just one more quick thing. I just want to express my appreciation for including the experiences of English language learners, or ESL 8, we call them ELL now, for those students to be the quality of their experience and their feeling of inclusion in our community, to have that be something that's really important to all the students, I think is really terrific. So I thank you for that.
Mr. Bryant?
I would like to take time to thank the Student Council for all of your hard work and commitment in bringing these issues to the school board and your suggestions. Kudos to your hard work, and we are looking forward to having a hearty discussion during our retreat and getting back together in the fall with you all to provide feedback. But I just had a really small question about the AFDA, putting on my counseling hat. I don't remember the young lady who presented AFDA, but was it my understanding that the students do not receive credit? Is that correct?
And they do. They receive credit.
I know they receive credit. I just wanted to make sure, we make that clarification, that they just don't get an SOL credit, but they receive one high school credit for AFDA.
They don't, and it's I think you were probably talking about towards the Advanced Studies Diploma. It's not in the math sequence for the Advanced Studies Diploma, is that correct? It's not verified credit. And next year, Algebra 2 may not be a verified credit for all students. It will be for some, but not necessarily, because the testing requirements has changed. So Algebra 2 could be in the same category as AFDA. But I think that's what you're referring to. You'd like to see if we're going to offer that course to elevate the rigor in the course in order to have a sequence to it.
Okay. All right, well, thank you. That's all I have.
Mr. Mickey?
I'd just also like to thank you. Ever since I got on the board, as Dr. Atkins knows, I always push surveys of trying to find out what students are thinking, or parents are thinking, or teachers are thinking, and for you all to go out and have 25 focus groups and distill it down to not only the issues but actual suggestions is just tremendously helpful to get that perspective. And I think that the timing of it is also going to work out really well with our equity committee and all the work that's going on around that with other diverse opinions of what we need to do to move the school system forward. And so I think the timing is good, and I think that as we get all these recommendations and we have our retreat and move forward on recommendations, and we kind of whittle it down to where we're headed and which ones we want to tackle, that we ought to think about doing like what we did for the MGT study, that we created a document that traced, it had timelines, and it had here's where we are on this, and we actually posted it on the web of where we were on various things, and so I think that we ought to think to do that sort of thing. But
wow, historical perspective is really helpful, Mr. Mickey.
But just thanks so much for all the work you put in and the valuable input. We've wanted to hear more from students. That's why we created the student rep position a few years ago. And thanks for all your hard work, and we'll certainly take these recommendations seriously and move forward.
Are there any other comments or thoughts, questions? Dr. Atkins? Nothing?
Again, thank you. We just appreciate it, and looking forward to the continued relationship. Pat yourselves on the back. You've done a great job. You've certainly influenced the way we operate and how other students will experience their K through 12 or pre-K through 12 time in our school system. So thank you so much.
Great job. Thanks, y'all. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is the textbook adoption, World Geography. This is an info item. Mr. Henderson?
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the board, Dr. Atkins. Tonight, staff will address the proposed adoption of the geography textbook, and that is connected with the adoption of the geography course in our program of study that was voted upon back in December and January. Annie Evans, Coordinator of World Studies, is here to provide you with information.
Thank you, Mr. Henderson, and thank you for letting us come forward with our recommendations. Mr. Billick, who is our committee chair, literally just left 7 minutes ago because he serves on the Scottsville Town Council, which is kind of cool, right, for a social studies teacher? So he apologizes. I do have some of the points that he wanted me to make sure that I stressed. So if you want to, I don't know if Leslie controls the slides or do I control the slides? Okay, there we go. This is just kind of a timeline reminding us all that the reason that we are adopting a new textbook is because we approved the new course. We're very excited about the new course being added to our CHS program of studies in conjunction at the same time with the environmental science course. We think those two coupled together are going to be a really wonderful curriculum for our upcoming freshman class. And so our committee was comprised of the current 9th grade social studies teachers. We also had some of our EL teachers and special education co-lab teachers who pushed into social studies review the books. The books were up for public review down the annex for a week, and that was advertised. We had a couple of folks stop by and give some really thoughtful verbal comments to us on those. And so the book that we are proposing is here. If anybody didn't get a chance to come to the public review, I know Ms. Torres, thank you for coming and looking at the books with us and a couple other folks. But the McGraw-Hill text that we selected, we felt like of the two choices that were on the state-approved adoption list, we felt like this book would best serve the needs of our students. What we're proposing, which is very similar to our last big adoption, which we did in 2009, is that we get class sets. So we wanted to ask for 4 class sets of 30 books. Those come along with digital resources, including assessment resources, and they're bundled in with the price of the regular textbook. And so our budget request is a very modest, coming in just a slightly over $14,000 for the 4 class sets with a 7-year access to the digital resources, including the teacher's guides now come digitally as well.
Thank you, Ms. Evans. Are there any questions? Mr. McHugh?
Why is it so cheap?
Well, because we're only getting class sets. And so we feel like we don't want the textbook to drive our...
As opposed to getting 2 sets?
As opposed to getting 1 per child.
1 per child.
So we have 4 teachers at that grade level, and so they'll each have a class set of books. We don't want our curriculum to be textbook driven. We want our curriculum to be driven by what is the best way to teach these particular skills and concepts. And so the textbook is just one of many resources. So we don't feel that there's a need for everybody to have a book in their hand every day, every night. We want it to be one of the many resources that our teachers and students can access to make this curriculum come alive. But a lot of what we're going to be using are digital resources that are open source, a lot of National Geographic, online, Library of Congress with historic maps, National Archives, that sort of thing. So we're pulling in content from all over, and this is just going to be one of our resources that we want to have.
But you still felt like it was worthwhile to have a printed textbook?
We did, and Mr. Bullock, as I said, he had to leave, but he felt strongly that for some kids especially, some kids just do better having that physical book, and there will be a digital version available if there's kids that's better for them. Also, we occasionally have students who are on homebound instruction, students who have limitations for physical reasons why they can't spend a lot of screen time, some kids that have accommodations that provide for a book to go home. So we want to make sure we leave all those options open, and we've also built in numbers-wise that there'll be enough books to also send to Lugo McGinnis because we will have students there potentially enrolled in that course as well.
Is the the digital resources, does that include an online book for everybody?
So the online book is basically, no, not for everybody. So with the adoption, with the 30 books comes 30 for each set, so 120 total of the digital versions, but those can be checked out sort of like an e-book at the library. So it's not where we're only going to be 120 of the kids in the freshman class who will be allowed to use that. Each teacher will have up to 30, so if you have a kid on homebound, if you have a kid that has a special requirement, you'll assign some of those books, and then other kids will check them out as they need them, if they're working on a project or if they need a little extra support. So we've done this with our last large-scale adoption, and that worked really well. So the last time we did a big 5 through 12 adoption, every teacher got 30, and we never ran out of the digital access for anyone.
Cool.
So that's the case in the human geography class right now, is that you just have class sets, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
So I do have a question. Okay. In AP Stats, we had like a login for the textbook, and then when you needed it, you would use your teacher's password. Is it kind of like that?
Exactly. Okay. So we have 30. Your teacher has 30. The other teacher, there's 2 teachers that teach that. Yeah. And so when you need it, it's just like checking out new books in the library, basically.
All right. Cool. Thanks.
And do you feel like that works pretty well for you and your friends?
I mean, yeah, I like having textbooks because, like, if I miss class or, like, if I just don't understand something, I can just go, like, teach myself by reading it. But, I mean, we don't use them that often. I mean, we use them for, like, homework and stuff like that. So they're definitely useful. So I'm excited. I'm going to go get the book. And
I did not pay her to say that. And I also did not pay her to say about the Trailblazers, but I'm really glad she did. I give her a snap for that because we had wished for that earlier.
Any other questions or thoughts? Great. So this will be on the agenda for next month to approve.
Okay. And the books will continue to be down the annex, so if you guys, want to take a chance to look at them, and then eventually let me know what you think.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Annie.
The next item on the agenda is History of Gifted Education. Mr. Henderson?
Good evening once again. Tonight, I would like to introduce Maggie Thornton, who's a former CHS teacher and presently a PhD student at the University of Virginia School of Education and Human Development. She will provide an update of the history of gifted education. Please welcome Maggie.
Thank you. Hello, Ms. Thornton. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Do you need help?
No, I'm okay. I just want to thank Dr. Henderson for that introduction, Dr. Atkins, Chairman McKeever, all our school board members. Thank you so much for having me tonight. I'm really glad to be here. And I also want to thank my mom who's here. She has been coming up from southwestern Virginia to drive me when I have things, so that's why I was able to be here tonight.
I think I see your brother too, right?
Yeah, he's here too. My brother is here also. I'm not exactly sure what's happening with the presentation. And I also wanted to thank Ms. Thacker for being so organized and helping me.
We did not do anything.
I know.
Is it her brother?
But see, I made a note before this happened. I'll also say while she's pulling that up, the last time that I got to speak to this body was in the spring of 2016 to bring forth the the student council's proposal to have a student school board member, and that's been really exciting to see that come to fruition over the last 3 years, and just hearing about the great work that you have done, Ziana, and all of your peers, and those who came before you, and the way that you all value them. It's really cool to see. So yes, I want to talk to you all tonight about a project that I did for a class that I was in at the education school where I am now a PhD student studying detracking and school leadership. Great. Okay, great. Yeah. So in this course, my professor suggested to me it would be interesting to look into some of the historical origins of tracking and to also be quite local because I have access to a number of primary data sources. So that's what I did, and I'm really excited to share with you all what I learned. So to sort of put things in context, I'm going to start with a very brief summary of the history of education in Charlottesville leading up to the founding of Quest, and then a brief history of the federal funding of gifted education, because that's what influenced what happens here, we know too well, and an exploration of the relationships between the national gifted education movement and then the the history of public education in Charlottesville. And then just a quick note about where we are. I think everyone is very aware in this moment in Charlottesville, but some suggestions about future studies that you all might like to see, or other ways that historians of education can be helpful to you. I'm happy to answer questions immediately after my presentation, but I do have to go right after to ice my knee and take care of myself, so I will be doing that, but I'll also have my contact information, and I welcome phone calls, emails, tweets, and would be happy to meet with anyone once I get my driving privileges back. So. And can I just... Oh, great. So this is the Jefferson School, and I think it's really important that we ground ourselves thinking about an institution that's so important to the African-American communities in Charlottesville as we think about this history. And something that was really interesting to me to come across in this study is that the first public school in Charlottesville was actually for Black students. It started in 1871, and this was not uncommon around the South in the years following the Civil War, and I think that's really important to remember. These schools were the product of a program called double taxation, in which Black families were taxed for the white schools, and then they taxed themselves again voluntarily in order to build schools that their children could attend, and that's what's happening with this school in 1871. And we hear a lot when we talk about gifted and inequalities that there are issues at the family level that are causing this, and ideas about culture, and I just think that it's really important to remember from the beginning of public education in Charlottesville, Black families were so invested in their children's education that they were willing to tax themselves at double the rate of white families. A year later, the first public school for white students opened, and then going into the 1890s, the first public high school for white students opened, where Midway Manor is now, and then 1926 is when the Jefferson School opened as the first public high school for African-American students in Charlottesville. So I'm going to talk a little bit about integration in Charlottesville and what led up to that, so we'll skip ahead by about 30 years. So in 1954, Brown versus Board found separate schools for white children and children of color are inherently unequal. And 4 years later, Charlottesville closed two schools, Lane High School and the Venable School, rather than integrate them, and that was very much driven at the state level. Governor Lindsey Almond declared that any school in the state that integrated would be closed. The city attempted to integrate those schools. They were closed by the state. But they were reopened in 1959, and limited integration began, in which Black families could choose where they wanted to send their children. They would have to write a request to a pupil placement board made up primarily of white parents, who would then decide whether or not students could attend. And you can see, you can go to UVA Special Collections, which is where I spent a lot of my time when I wasn't in the school board vault, again thanks to Ms. Becker. And you can see the letters that the pupil placement board would write back to parents, and they would say, well, your son or daughter has excellent test scores, so we think that she should stay at her current school rather than come to Lane. Or your son or daughter has terrible test scores, and so we don't want him coming into the white schools. He's not going to be ready for the rigor there. And also at this time, and this is what I want to go back to, is a letter that I think you all have copies of, and if not, I know the PDF is on tonight's agenda. This woman's name really is Miss Smith. I was trying to protect her identity. She has since died, and her family does not live here anymore. Her last name was Smith, and she wrote a letter to the superintendent at the time that is also in Special Collections, and I had a hard time finding them when I first started doing this work, and one of our education reporters in Charlottesville I talked to about the work, and he found it in the wrong folder. So I'm really grateful to Josh Mandel for helping with this work, and we miss him very much. So, but he found this letter in the wrong folder, and Ms. Smith wrote to Superintendent Findle with the idea to create a gifted program that would serve, first we would take take the top 10% of students on scholastic achievement tests, which we're already administering. We sometimes think we're the first generation that's had to deal with this. Unfortunately, standardized tests have been around since about the beginning of high school in this country. So she said we should take that top 10% and then give them an IQ test, which at the time, IQ tests were very much normed for weight intentionally. And so we would give them the IQ test, and we would reasonably find about 2% of the entire school population would then be gifted. And she admits in this letter that some of these students will be black students, one or two perhaps, and then that will be integrated enough. That will satisfy the integrationists, it will satisfy the federal order, and it will also satisfy the state requirements that schools not be integrating. And then she also went a step further and suggested that we create an above average group in each grade of students who are in that top 10%, but not the top 2%, and have a program adapted to their special capabilities, and that this would make all the students below want to strive so that they could get into this program. And what strikes me about this letter, and I hope strikes you all as you read it, is what she describes is what we're doing today. She outlines Quest almost to a T. And so I'm going to talk now a little bit about how that happened, but I ruined the slideshow. There we go. So we pick back up in 1965 when the first African-American school board member is appointed in Charlottesville. And then in 1967, every public school was fully integrated. Students were going to the school closest to their home. And the lines are different than they are today, but not measurably. And so in the 70s, in the early 1970s, Congress commissioned what became known as the Maryland Report, because they were very interested when schools had integrated. Integration seemed to be working very well. There was recently an Atlantic article about a forthcoming book a professor at Stanford did about the late 60s, early 70s, mid-70s of integration and all of the positive benefits there. And so Congress sort of changes tacks, and they want to look at what's happening for gifted students. And Maryland finds that there is, gifted and talented kids are those who can perform above their peers, and they need a differentiated educational program beyond what's in the regular classroom. And he notes that we are most, as a country, most likely to miss poor students and students of color who are gifted. But Congress didn't focus as much on that part of the report. Instead, in 1974, 2 years after the Maryland Report was commissioned, Congress reauthorized the Elementary and Secondary Education Act, which some of us might know now as No Child Left Behind or the Every Student Succeeds Act, the federal vehicle for funding education. And they provided over $100 million for gifted education and research into gifted education, which would be $600 million in today's money. I don't know about you all, but if the federal government said, we're going to give $600 million to schools all across the land, I'm really happy about that. And I would sit up and take note about why they were doing that. And also, in this reauthorization, they prohibit federal money from being used for busing efforts aimed at integration. And I think it's important to see these two actions as related. I think we hear a lot about gifted education having its roots in the Cold War, in the space race, but at this point we're nearly 20 years past the height of Russia's power. We're in a tepid stalemate in all our proxy wars with the USSR around the world, and there isn't a lot of discussion in Congress in the 70s in this reauthorization about Russia, about Iraq, like there was in the 50s and the 60s. Those concerns are largely gone, and instead are focused on moving funding away from immigration and toward this gifted education program. So they don't make any ties with this money, and it exists sort of how it exists today, in that you must have a program, but what it looks like is largely left up to the school divisions. And so that money comes to the Virginia General Assembly, and eventually comes to Charlottesville in the form of a $100,000 grant from the state to establish a pull-out program. I also want to note here that while the 70s they did require a pull-out, that's no longer part of the state requirement. The state requires identification and enrichment, but the how, again, is largely left up to divisions. So the busing riders I mentioned before, and I just wanted to make a note, this chunk of money that was taken from the integration efforts and put into gifted also outlawed any further future federal expenditures on integration transportation. It's known as the busing rider. But there are plans to strengthen in the next appropriations bill. So I'm sorry about that, just not breathing that hard. So then we've got Quest here in 1976, and almost from the very beginning of Quest, we see community concern about the program. So the very first study, most of the concerns center around class time for activities. Students are being pulled out and bused to a different school, and so parents were concerned they were going to get behind in their home schools. But as time went on, we continue to see things that are similar to what we're seeing today. So in 1983, a census conducted by the school board found that Quest includes 19% of all white students in the division and 2.6% of all African American students. And that's when we begin to see the introduction of different ideas about what giftedness is and trying to expand that definition. Our Quest follows these discussions later on and an attempt to include more people. However, those attempts have not always worked, and a year later, the U.S. Department of Education audited Charlottesville City Schools and found both an underrepresentation in gifted programs of African American students and an over-identification in special education programs. And there was a lot of controversy, a lot of discussion, and Charlottesville High School actually had to close for a day and a half after students walked out, precipitated by some racist comments made by a faculty member in the nighttime review, which you can always read downstairs, you can go and read it, it's pretty terrible. But those comments were in response to an article, or in response to this audit. And they had a lot to say about family and that it's the family's fault or it's the culture's fault. So students walked out. We had to close school for a day and a half. And our response, because it is the city of Charlottesville, was to start a task force. So we have this task force. They find there's no open racism in the schools, but we need to support minority academic achievement. It needs to be a major priority as the language that the school board uses in paneling this task force. And I think this is also an important place to reflect and think about intention versus impact. My contention is not that anyone who started Quest or worked in Quest in Charlottesville in the 70s thought, this will frustrate integration, oh goody. I don't think people here thought that. I don't even think Ms. Smith in 1958 thought, this will be great, we'll be able to keep segregation. I think she thought, this is a way we can keep the schools open. It's bad the schools are closed. But the impact of those choices and the intent, coupled with the intentions at the federal level, drove what became and was always destined to be an inequitable system. And again, in 1986, there is another study that is done by Educational Consulting Services out of Richmond that notes the racial imbalances both in Quest and in the neighborhood-based elementary schools, and links the two for the first time. That one of the reasons we're seeing this imbalance is because the schools themselves are so imbalanced. And so in 1986, Charlottesville School Board goes ahead and reauthorizes funds for Quest and emphasizes a focus on objectivity in selection. And I think this is also an important place to think about what we do and why we do it, because if we go back, even the tests that are being used today that are developed have their roots in the Simon Binet test, the creators of whom had very deeply held beliefs in eugenics and very racist beliefs about what any person of color was capable of doing. So even when we think something is objective, I think we have to see is the outcome objective, and that continues to not be the case in Quest. And what you might not be able to read here, but hopefully can see, is I've made a chart from the 1984 meeting after the audit by the Federal Department of Education and things that people said, and then community reaction to last fall's article in the New York Times about inequity in our school. And what I found really telling is we're saying the same things. I wasn't alive in 1984, so this goes past my lifetime that this has been an issue. And you'll see it's the family. We need more preparation in elementary schools. We are having teachers are wanting to say, well, I can't do everything, which of course is true. And these conversations, we've been having them for a long time, and so I wanted to try to do what I can do to help to move the ball forward, and maybe not tweaking Quest, but imagining something different. And I thought this quote from Trinity, who I thought I saw here earlier, but maybe she was here. Okay, well, tell her a little shout out. I think that this is a really important thing to think about, that there is a gap from the beginning of testing into Quest. Students know it, they see it, they know we don't value what they have to offer, and we value what other students are having to offer. So I'm happy to answer questions from you all now, and then these are the best ways to be in touch with me, both my email and Twitter handle. Luckily, Lent is over, so I'm back tweeting. Thank you so much for inviting me. This is truly an honor.
Thank you, Ms. Thornton. I really appreciate you coming, and Dr. Atkins for inviting Ms. Thornton to come and talk about this. I know that the school board is really interested in hearing what you have to say and kind of any suggestions you might have for shifting the program. So, Dr. Atkins?
Thank you, Maggie. I so appreciate you being here. I appreciate the research that you've done. It is so encouraging to be able to have a foundation from which we launch any of our recommendations as we move forward. So thank you. I have a question.
Yes.
A Nation at Risk report in 1983, it was interesting to me to see the development of the funding for a gifted program. Where would you think that A Nation at Risk and everything, and actually our accountability testing is an outflow of that 1983 Nation at Risk?
I think that's a really important question, and I think the fact that it does not touch these gifted issues also in explicit terms. Obviously, testing, I think, has played into how we determine giftedness or see giftedness. That is certainly the case, but A Nation at Risk was much more interested in assessing where students were than necessarily moving them. So you see a sort of, we measure what matters, but also the idea of if we measure it, that will somehow make it better. So that's almost a parallel discussion, and I think what bled over into gifted funding, there was shortly after this time period, the Javits Act, which you might be familiar with, that provided more funding and a little more direction for giftedness. That was perhaps more related to the eye that was on public education at the time, but not embedded in this same concern about under-preparing our students.
I have one additional question. Prior to Brown versus Board of Education,
that legislation, that challenge, were there gifted education identification? Was there research that had been done? And then in this 1958 letter, in the discussion, during that period, had there been research done on gifted education?
So what happened primarily before 1954 was a tracking system, much more rigid than the systems we have in place today. In fact, students went to completely different schools. So students would maybe be in a grammar school together until about the 6th grade, and then they would aptitude testing, teacher recommendation, a lot of what we work with today would then decide what higher school students would go to, whether they would go to no school, some sort of vocational school, or a school that was designed to prepare them for college, but those were completely separate. And also of note, in Charlottesville and other smaller communities, this was all only offered to white children. Black children were same school through high school. There wasn't a black vocational school. There wasn't a black college preparatory academy here. In some of the larger cities, you would see that. And your second question about Ms. Smith, so she writes really extensively more about what other communities were doing at the time. Virginia Beach is one that she notes, and I did a little research. The city of Norfolk also had a similar system, but there wasn't any sort of sense of measurement, is this working, yet, because they had just started.
And their start, was it like this?
It was very similar in response to massive resistance and concerns about how are we going to do what the federal authorities are saying we must do and what the state authorities say we must do. Let's start this program. We'll say it's integrated enough, and then we can keep doing what we've been doing otherwise.
Great. Thank you.
Of course, thank you.
Does anybody else have any comments for Ms. Thornton?
I think Sherry does.
I'm struck by going back to the 1980s, and I really appreciate seeing all this history and seeing the history of what the school board, Charlottesville School Board, has done, that these issues, the concerns that we're identifying now were identified way back then.
Absolutely.
And it just strikes me that nothing substantial was done to change anything.
Yeah, and that was, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to disagree with you. I agree, it's really disconcerting.
Well, and, I guess I'm just thinking that, and again, I'll put on my psychologist hat, because I think that the development of standardized testing created the idea that these were totally objective measures of assessment, and we could just rely on these scores because they were standardized.
Absolutely.
And ignoring, all of the problems in creating the standardization. So, it's, I don't know what to say. It's just discouraging that, we're dealing with the same issues that we've known are in our system for such a long time.
I agree. I think what helps me to not be discouraged, though, is this conversation. And that is a departure from the school board minutes, and I've read a lot of them over the course of the last 50 years of there being the Charlottesville City School Board, is they weren't talking about what happened before. They were really sitting in their moment and responding in a very reactive way, whereas I think what is different now, both for you all and for our community, is while some of these concerns may have been born by the events of summer 2017 or the New York Times article, we are considering what came before, what is our inheritance, and what do we have to accept, and what can we leave behind. And that's new. It's completely new. There's no record of them doing that before. So I think that is different.
Yeah. That's right. Well, and I think you have helped us all make the connection between, our racial history and these programs and the, lack of equity in our educational system. I remember when I first saw that letter, I just could hardly speak. I just couldn't believe it, that it was just out there on paper.
Yeah.
They were saying this,
Yeah, it was, and I think also you're right about the standardized testing, and maybe this goes back to your earlier question to Dr. Atkins, is that's always been the case with standardized testing that had its basis in World War I, and trying to separate recruits and see who should be an officer and who should, for lack of a better word, be cannon fodder, and that those tests, those historical roots are with us today. That testing theory we use to build the SOLs. We use to build our identification criteria. The SAT, the PSAT, the ACT, so many of these standardized tests, and there was a belief then as now that they were objective, and it was just objective fact that white, college-educated men were going to be at the top of this normal distribution, and it was just a fact that intelligence is normally distributed. And we know both of those things are not objective facts, so why are we using these tools that disagree with what we know to be true?
Ms. Bryant?
So thank you for that presentation. I follow you on Twitter, and all the information is really useful. I think one thing that I would like to point out, and that I hope everyone in the room is thinking about, is language. We see a lot of covert racist language all the time, and we overlook it because maybe we're not a person of color, or we just don't understand how to break that down into a racialized lens. But Ms. Smith is not the very first person, of course, to be racist covertly, and not the last, because we've had elected officials actually write audits saying things like Black parents expect the schools to do everything for them. And so after, I was kind of writing down your timeline, staff member makes racially charged remarks, there's a walkout, and there's a task force created, which is very similar to now. When the New York Times article came out, a staff member made it very clear that they felt that certain students had no home training. And so I just hope that as we continue to move forward and have these conversations, we're able to break those very racist remarks apart and call them out for what they are. But also to think about the fact that if parents who have lived in Charlottesville, who have been poorly educated, how is it their responsibility to help their students go to college when they've never experienced such? So I really hope that we're continuing to break down all levels and really look at situations and issues as complex and layered, because if parents haven't been well educated, how do we expect them to give support?
And I think that really relates to what happened after integration, or as integration happened, and this is a whole other study, is the disintegration of an important piece of African-American middle-class communities, which were teachers and principals. Tens of thousands of Black teachers lost their job across the country after integration. Black principals were demoted to teachers in white schools. And so the education, a lot of Black parents believe, and there's a lot of empirical evidence to support, that what was happening to Black students after integration, they were actually getting a worse education. And that's not an endorsement of segregation. It is separate and it cannot be unequal, but that we have not made integration equal.
Mr. Mickey?
I was curious if you know when you said there was required pull-out for a while when it was adopted in the 70s. Do you know how long that requirement went on?
The last time the state updated those standards of quality, I know, is 2014, but I don't know what the difference between that and the previous ones were, because I was focused primarily on the 70s and 80s in this study.
But did you say they ended the requirement for pull-out?
They did end the requirement for pull-out. I don't know when, but I know at least since 2014, perhaps for longer.
And again, this wasn't your area of focus, but I assume the requirement is still that we have a program and that we still have to do some identification.
So the requirement in the standards of quality is that there is some mechanism, and that's the word that they use, for identification of gifted students, and that there is some sort of program of enrichment for those students. A lot of the discussion in the General Assembly, even at the time, noted in the 2014 change, noted some the ability for school divisions to be giving all students what they're giving gifted students. There is not a state requirement that we have to, Zion, I'm using you as an example because you're a student. So Zion was clearly gifted, she's very bright, she's very smart, she's going places, and we're going to help her go even farther faster. We can do that for her, and we can do it for the student sitting next to her who has not met any of those markers and still be meeting the state requirements.
Also, just to clarify, identifying a particular subject matter is area of giftedness is also up to the school division.
Absolutely.
It's not something that you have to specifically identify for math or for language arts or for, okay.
Right.
In fact, we have art class.
Right, I'm going to, on Friday, tomorrow, go to the opening, so that'll be my big outing tomorrow.
Yeah.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah, I just want to chime, it's good to see you again, Maggie. And you had mentioned, before about your support of having a student on the board here, and Ned and I going to your classroom and talking to the students. You had the most comfortable couch. It was the cool class to go to, so I really appreciate this information. And I mentioned before that I talked to a student before an interview, and one of the questions she posed to me was, when did it all start, and what here in Charlottesville, what can you do? And it really kind of stumped me because I didn't know. I mean, I said, that's an excellent question. And I went way back, I said it probably has to do with us bringing, we as African Americans came here for a totally different reason than most other individuals. And from that, if you just kind of go back into the 60s, we really only became the opportunity to vote or become equal, if you will. And that this is not a problem that's solely here in the city of Charlottesville.
No, it's certainly.
What I'm encouraged by is that we are pulling back the curtains. I mean, we are not, at first I heard of this letter was really about, maybe a month ago or so. So I'm encouraged that we are not trying to, close. And Dr. Atkins, I mean, for you to have, a PhD student come and give a presentation on it really shows that we're trying to address this. We're not, we are having all the public input, to try to address this. I don't have any solutions or any, what we're going to do because we're going to get input from everyone, but I'm just encouraged that we're not trying to hide this. We're addressing it head on, and in the early school districts, if they don't do this, then we're not really, we only have about 4,200 students here, and there's a lot more in the state, in the country, in the world. So if we all don't try to address where we are, where we've been, it's going to be difficult to plot out a course to address it. And this is the first step that we doing. So thank you, Dr. Atkins, and the community and the board for us trying to address this.
I just wanted to make sure that Dr. Atkins had an opportunity to kind of lay out a timeline for what when her recommendations will be available, and when we will talk about this more, if that would be appropriate.
Thank you. Maggie, again, I'm sure we'll be talking more, having some more conversation about this. I really appreciate it. And I think your presentation is so important that it's here before not only our school board, but before our community also. I'm just grateful that we're able to get that out. I wish we did have media here now so that we could have you on camera talking. We have our cameras here, but it would be wonderful to disseminate it in other ways so that not only can our community hear this, but our Commonwealth and our nation understand how this letter illustrates the intentionality to, on one hand, to comply with the law, but to comply with it in the most marginalized way possible, and to, at all cost, avoid desegregation. So it was putting one group of students at an advantage and putting another group of its students at a completely different disadvantage. And it's
it's great to put that on the table. So I really appreciate it. When I read the letter,
It's powerful, it's upsetting. Absolutely.
It's incredibly upsetting. My first thought was, for such a long time, we've been knocking on the door to get our children in the gifted program. We should have been knocking the door down and the structures that held up that door,
Absolutely.
rather than trying to get them in. Our students are incredibly bright. Our black and brown students are incredibly bright. And we can call programs anything we want to call them, but they belong in every program that's available to our white students. Our black students belong in those programs.
Absolutely.
So I'm just appreciative. I can tell you, I have spoken with our Quest Advisory Committee and handed out this letter. There are multiple groups, the PTO chairs, our principals, the Quest teachers, just a whole host of different groups. I've handed this letter out to last night with our Equity Committee. We also handed out the letter and had a discussion. And as I've watched other black adults and members of those committees read the letter and start to attempt to discuss it, the flood of emotions that come forth is humbling, because for so many years, last night someone made the comment, for so many years they knew something was going on, that something was happening to their student where they could not get into the Quest program or other programs. And last night when they read that letter, they felt validated that it's true, there was something going on. And for the first time, they felt, wow, we were not imagining things. So again, thank you. Out of all the discussions that we've had and all of the information that we have gathered, we are going to be, Ms. McKeever, bringing a recommendation to our school board in June about our Quest program. I have said to our Quest committee, as we've had some incredibly productive discussions, that at that time I was not clear on what the program will look like in the fall. However, it will look quite different, and it will look quite different starting in the 1920 school year. The model will be different. Not only will the model be different, I will be recommending to the board, but I will also recommend to the board, if we continue to identify different tools and a different process by which we will identify, including when we identify students for any type of additional services in our school division. So I'll be bringing that to the board and making that recommendation. I also want to thank several of the professors at the University of Virginia. We invited them to come and talk with us. I also gave them a copy of the letter, and I asked them to give us any wisdom or any suggestions that they might have, understanding the New York Times article, understanding our Quest program and the historical nature of our program. Give us recommendations on what should we look at, how should we approach any changes that we will make with the program. And I have to say thank you to them. I have also left the door open for additional comments and additional suggestions that they might give us. So again, thank you. Ziana, thank you. Change is coming, and I think we will all benefit, and especially our students. I'll share this one story. I had a parent to come in recently, and that parent, her student was last year part of a pull-out program, not identified as gifted. And then this year, because we changed some of that pull-out,
her student is no longer being pulled out, and it's a white family. And she shared, and the mom and dad shared with me, now that their student is left in the classroom and watches other students being pulled out, how the student now questions how smart he is. And he's saying, maybe I'm not as smart as I thought I was. And perhaps there is something different between those students who are pulled out and the students who remain in the classroom. And as they were talking, I could not help but think about our black and brown children who have been in the classrooms and watched that process so many times. And that as a school division, that's just not the message that we want to send to our students. So, thank you.
Well, I want to close by thanking you all so much for having me, particularly Dr. Atkins. When I got your tweet as a former teacher, I was like, oh, I'm being called to the principal's office. But that discussion was very fruitful, and I just am so grateful to be here. And I want to close by saying that I love Charlottesville. I've lived here for almost 15 years, and I love Charlottesville High School. I wake up every day and have to make a conscious choice to keep going in my program and not show up here to sub for the day. Although I do sometimes still do that too. And so all of this discussion, all of this research is done very much out of a place of deep-seated love for our community, and also out of the several beliefs. One is that every child is smart and every child is gifted, and that the work of school should be to help all students uncover their smarts and uncover their gifts and then cultivate them to use them as adults in service to themselves and their community. And Mr. Wade, particularly what you were saying about this is not only happening in Charlottesville, but we are dealing with it. And I think because we are dealing with it and because you all are doing this work and having these difficult conversations, we have an opportunity for Charlottesville City Schools to be a model to the rest of the Commonwealth and the rest of the country for how to tackle this problem that has been with us since public school began. So thank you all so much for being willing to do that. And thank you for the time. No, it's just right there. I gotta go put some ice.
Do you guys want to take like 10 minutes? Or are you ready to go?
It's whatever you want to do.
All right, okay.
Madam Chair, let's thank Maggie's mom for bringing her.
Yes.
We are all grateful for Ms. Thornton's mom and her brother for being here, and of course her dad, who no doubt would want to be here. That's right. He's a long legacy of educators in your family. The next item on our agenda, if we're ready to move on to the next item, is the preschool update. Hi, Mr. Henderson again.
Again. Tonight, staff will provide an update on the preschool program in Charleston City Schools. Sheila Sparks, coordinator of preschool, and Rachel Rasnick, coordinator of special ed, who works with our preschool students, are here to provide you with an update.
Thank you for having us. We are very glad to be here. Dr. Atkins, Madam Chair, school board members, and Ziana, thank you. We're glad to be here, and we are doing this in partnership tonight because Rachel and I are partners in taking care of our youngest children, and that really is very important to both of us. So I do want to I appreciate the opportunity for us to do this together. A few items that we're going to talk about today, probably not get to a lot of detail on all of these in the interest of time, but we are happy to have any additional conversations with anyone as needed. Looking at the preschool enrollment numbers, right now, this number is about as solid as Jell-O. So, and I'm a preschool person, so Jell-O is important. But our numbers at each of the schools is varying, and so I put the date on there as 4/26/19. As you can see, we have some schools who we have an overflow of children, and we are creatively figuring out how we can support every child in the 4-year program in their home school or a neighboring school as close as possible. And there are some schools where we still have some openings, and I think when there are some IEPs that are being written as we speak, and so some of these are pending, will very likely be accepted, but we're waiting on some additional documentation from families, so we're working individually with some families in both our 3-year-old and 4-year-old program. So
I'm sorry to be, so this is the current enrollment as of right now, or is this for next year?
This is for next year, so looking at moving forward into next year.
So we would expect to have some Jell-O.
We absolutely expect Jell-O at this point in time. Because we do accept applications up until we're full.
Right.
And then we figure out new solutions on how to support those children. So yes.
Get your applications in.
Yes, so get those applications in, those supporting documents, come talk to me, or call me and I'll come see you. So for the 3-year-old program, and we appreciate Sherry coming this year with us, and Ms. Torres came with us last year to do some 3-year-old interviews. This is an interesting situation because we don't have 3-year-old classrooms in every building at this point. When you look at the count balance, Clark right now would have some space, but then you look at the Venable numbers right now, you see that those two would balance out. And so then we would look at how we can, because every child, no matter whether there's a 3-year-old program in that building, we work to make sure that they get access to preschool education, because we know how important that is. So we work with transportation a lot over the summer to make sure that every child can get in, because we feel like that's really, really important. So the next piece, Rachel and I are going to share. Mr. Henderson asked me to share some specific highlights and accolades that, and some features that we've had this year with the preschool program. First of all, back in September, we had Virginia's First Lady, Pamela Northam, came and visited our preschool program at Greenbrier, read with the children, provided books for the children. It really is a treat. If you have never heard Mrs. Northam read a book, you need to find a way to have her read a children's book to you. There's nobody better. She really was amazing, and the children were just captivated by her. The next feature is that we had a partnership with Wild Rock, and they did a feature presentation on the PBS show, the Charlottesville Inside Out, and I've shared that, I know, with some folks in the room, and it was about a 30-minute segment where they really featured our children and their experiences with nature learning, and how that kind of helps them self-regulate, and we love that because that's so important for many children who don't get as many outside experiences in nature. So that one's really important. I'm going to let Rachel talk about the next piece.
So Charlottesville City is known across the state for its work in VTSS, and so this year we have been a pilot school division for VTSS in early childhood. There's not currently any state guidance or guidelines for that process. We are going to be the evidence for that, and so we've been tasked with developing what
a tier system looks like in a program that isn't universal. And so our work this year has been focused on how to start that work, and we've looked at Tier 1 practices. And going forwards, we're going to really look at how we can make sure that all of our students get the tiered interventions and supports that they need to be successful kindergartners.
Thank you, Rachel. The last one on this page, and I told Mr. Henderson, I'm like, I really don't like to brag on what is going on, but this one is really important in Charlottesville, especially, I think, because trauma-informed care is such an important piece in our community specifically. We had some staff who went to the Virginia Summit on childhood trauma and resilience in Richmond just a week or so ago, and the Clark Elementary preschool program was cited as an exemplar for social emotional learning and for the state of Virginia. And the quote was, "Clark Elementary School is doing amazing work in pre-K social emotional learning in Charlottesville City Schools," and I wanted to edit that and go, it's every Charlottesville City School and it's every preschool classroom, but I'm not going to argue. We're very proud of the work that we're doing in that arena, and one of the things that we have talked about in VTSS is that there are things that come down from seniors in high school down to elementary. There's also a lot of things that go from preschool up, and that's exactly what is happening. The presenters were tasked with developing a book for principal leadership on being trauma responsive, and Clark and Charlottesville City Schools is highly featured in this. I think it's about a 300-page book, so that will go out to principals, is my understanding. So that's very exciting. And I'm going to go quickly through this. And the General Assembly has, those of you who have followed the General Assembly know that the VDOE has developed a plan to ensure that VPI, the Virginia Preschool Initiative, which is for serving our at-risk 4-year-old children across many classrooms across the state of Virginia, to provide high-quality preschool experiences. There are 3 big areas. One is curricular resources that are evidence-based and integrated. The second is assessing teacher-child interaction and the quality of those interactions, and then individualized professional development for the teachers and the staff that are working in those classrooms. In the interest of time, I will let you look at the next couple of slides because I know that there's a lot of information there, but I think the really important piece to this is that the curriculum, the rating, the quality, all of those things are not just in VPI classrooms. Charlottesville City, we've made it a priority that we are going to be doing this in 3-year-old classrooms as well, and in our early childhood special education classrooms. So any classroom, any space that is serving our 3- and 4-year-old classrooms, we're going to make sure that every child is getting access to these qualities. And because we know what's good for preschoolers, we want to make sure that we are providing those resources and supports for all of those classrooms and all of those teachers. We are part of the Preschool Development Grant, the Birth to 5 federal monies that came to Virginia and came down to our Thomas Jefferson United Way Early Education Task Force. We are working together with that collaborative group to be building that capacity of assessing the teacher-child interactions. And with that, there is some funding that's coming to teachers to help support them with that. But what I think is important, and just so that everybody knows, class is not the after-school program. It is the through Teachstone and been researched very, very thoroughly at the University of Virginia. This one is just about professional support, so that each teacher and instructional assistant will get feedback after these observations are completed. These observations are not evaluative in the form of someone being hired or fired, so to speak. This is more about building their skill set. And that really is the point of the observation, of making sure that teachers have the skills to be able to provide the most responsive situation for every child in their care.
So one of the goals of our partnership has been to increase inclusive opportunities for students with disabilities in early childhood settings. So not just in our classrooms, but also affording children the opportunity to access special education supports and continue to attend their local preschool and the choice preschool of their family. And so we are participating in a community of learning with other divisions across the state. There are 11 of us. We have members from the community participating with us. So we have Deb Rogers from Barrett, as well as Melissa Carter from Head Start. And I just wanted to read our vision to you guys. So the community decided that we endeavor to provide all students with disabilities an inclusive preschool experience that meets their unique developmental needs. We are going to use professional learning, commitment of resources, and community collaboration to increase our capacity to provide those specialized individual supports to students in an inclusive environment. So we've been working on that this year. We're going to attend some sessions over the summer to increase our understanding and our application.
Another endeavor that we have, we worked with Erin Eichhorst, who is the Fine Arts Coordinator, last year, and this year we have been running with the art instruction for our 4-year-old classroom students. And you can see on the slide there at the bottom, that is artwork from a 4-year-old child. And if you look at that, that is pretty impressive for a 4-year-old. So I wanted to share that. Most of the time you just think that they're scribbling or coloring randomly. That's a 4-year-old who gets it. That's a bright kiddo. So I wanted to share that. Wild Rock has been becoming a very large partner with Charlottesville City and with our preschool program specifically, with some grant writing that they have done to provide 2 field trips each year. So they go to Wild Rock once in the fall, once in the spring. They also come, they do a pre and a post visit at school, on school grounds, to give them nature activities, and we call it Nature Friends, so that gives them 6 nature experiences in a school year where they can learn to play and have those natural experiences, talking about animals, talking about plants, talking about trees, and understanding that they can have those right there in their apartment complex, in their school garden, in the schoolyard, which has been really exciting because not everybody can drive all the way out to Western Albemarle. So that has been a huge partnership, and they have paid for all the transportation this year for our children to be able to go, which is really impressive. And then, as you probably are aware, our partnership with the Early Education Task Force has been, and you can see many of the partners there, has really become there are many people who are very interested in early education for children, and so I just wanted to be able to recognize our partnership with many different organizations here in our community locally. And I just have to get my plug in because Annie Evans had a plug in earlier. On June 10th, we invite you to join us at the preschool symposium that's being hosted by the Early Education Task Force. It's going to be pretty much an all-day affair. I think it's 8:30 to 1:30. Lunch is provided, and Jenna Conway, who is the governor's chief school readiness officer, is our keynote speaker, and she is going to She is amazing, and she is actually, Bev Catlin's niece, for those of you, and she is a product of Charlottesville City Schools. So, we like to give her a lot of support, and because she has really been a great partner and leader for early education. Just a few areas of growth that I know that we are all kind of thinking of. Community-wide, there's a little bit of a crisis going on in Charlottesville, Albemarle area for after-school options for preschool. So that is something that I'm working with lots of community partners about to try to come up with some solutions, because right now there are going to be no after-school options for preschoolers as of August. So we will continue working toward that. The other piece is languages, and I'd like to echo what the students brought up earlier. Particularly at Greenbrier, we have a vast number of students families who don't speak English, so being able to have access to a language line type of thing would be amazing, kind of figuring out some additional supports for that. And our number one goal is to continue to solidify and build continuity of programming across all 3- and 4-year-old and ECSC supports, and being able to really move us forward so that when we do move forward into a different type of setting, we can also have that continuity carrying us forward. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sheila and Rachel, appreciate it. Anybody have any comments or questions, thoughts for the speakers? Mr. Mickey?
I assume we're full this year?
At this point, we're not quite full. We've had some families who have moved. The past 3 years, in my time, we have been about 5 under typically, give or take what day of the month it is. We have families but we partner with Barrett and Head Start as well, because for different families, different situations are a better match, because they may have younger children who are in those settings as well.
Working parents.
Yeah, well, that's something we need to think about, for sure. Do you generally start out full and then people leave, or?
We generally grow in the fall. After school starts, we continue receiving applications. Once summer's over and all the kids have headed off to school and they realize that their other 3- and 4-year-old friends can't come out and play anymore because they're at school, we tend to get additional applications after the school year starts as well.
I wonder if there's something more we can be doing to get the word out, because it's a shame for any seats to go unfilled when that's such an important head start, as it were, for kids.
We also, Eleanor Baris is one of our family support workers who works, she's through Charlottesville DSS, and she works with DSS for looking at their subsidy list and cross-references names to be able to help identify additional children. We worked with Claudette Grant when she was over at Friendship Court to be able to, we go through names. I did the same thing with PHA with some other locations that they have as well. I think getting the word out with housing for City of Charlottesville, I think, is kind of our next adventure of trying to navigate those other places of continuing to reach out to families.
It seems like the studies a few years back indicated we were kind of meeting most at-risk 4-year-old needs, and maybe the fact that we have some empty seats there isn't surprising, because that's good news if we're, as a community, by and large, meeting at least the most at-risk need. But 3-year-old, I would assume we're still not close to meeting that need. Do we nevertheless have some empty seats there?
We have had some for various reasons that parents they're not quite ready for them to be at school yet, so we have worked to try to train them. And it is something where some children just developmentally need more time at home. In some families, their culture is that they're home with grandma. they're not ready to release them to us yet, because that's their last opportunity to have the child at home, and we respect their decision on that, particularly with the 3-year-olds, because I feel like that's such important bonding time to form that attachment so that they really are ready to come when they're 4.
Well, we think about the desire to expand our 3-year-old program. Is that a good idea, or is that not necessary?
Well, my honest opinion, I think it's really important that we have a 3-year-old program in every building, because I feel like that's such an important time for families to be able to start making those connections with school. I think it's really important to be able to start that so that when they know they're staying in the same residence, that once they start at 3, they make those connections and relationships with the secretary at the front desk, the guidance counselor, the principal, the librarian, the school nurse, all of those folks, and it becomes their second home. And when we have families who, for instance, are Berlin-Oriented zone or Venable zone, and they go to Clark, and then for 4-year-old program, we say, all right, we're going to get you back in your home school. And they're like, but this is our home school. And I had a conversation today, as a matter of fact, with a family who definitely was surprised that she was in the Jackson Via zone. So that is
I guess that's been one of the blessings of having preschool programs when they can overlap with the kids' home elementary school. We're, of course, talking about moving back to a centralized preschool and expanding the 3-year-old program. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm probably one of the bigger cheerleaders for a centralized location, because I do think there is so much collaboration for teachers. I think there's an opportunity to share resources and to be able to share strengths of children. This teacher really is, doing some amazing science activities, and this child is really interested. I can send them, to Rachel's classroom, for instance, to be able to have some of those experiences, or Rachel can teach me how to do that as a classroom teacher. If that's not my strength, then everybody would be talking the same language as far as early childhood goes, because it is different than K to 4. And I think that really is, it's that building that community, and what a way that we can introduce families to Charlottesville City Schools in the most loving way, so that they feel 100% comfortable, so they're not out there with the big kiddos.
Seems like
it can be a little scary.
Easier, more efficient to monitor the quality of kid interactions and these kind of gold star indicators that you're focusing on, that would be easier in a centralized preschool.
Absolutely, and that really is one of my goals that we have been talking about since I started 3 years ago, is trying to build consistency and as far as teacher expectations, so that there's not 6 different principals and coordinators telling them potentially 7 different things. That way there's one message, there's one purpose, and we're here to meet children's needs, and we're going to do that however possible. And I think that is just so important. It's so vitally important.
I think it's a hugely important issue. I want to just kind of underline that. The principals are really out of their bailiwick in trying to, evaluate based on this Teachstone product, and so they do the best that they can, but K-12 is fundamentally different than pre-K, and I think that's one other important reason that reconfiguration in a centralized preschool is so important in our division, is that we have that continuity and stability of evaluating and expectations for our teachers and students. So I just want to underline and highlight that.
And another one, I think, is that we will be much better able to offer services to parents, parenting classes, parent-child interaction experiences, a lot of things. After-school experiences, enrichment experiences. I think there's so much more that we can do in that reconfiguration. So I'm very, very eager to move on with that.
One final question, if I may. A couple of years ago, we got a grant for placing preschoolers in private preschools. Is that still going on?
There's been a new version. The time before, I do not believe, it was before I was in this role, but I do not believe there were maybe just a handful of children placed. We are part of the new partnership, and we will be working with some local preschools here like Barrett to do that for families who that's the best option or their option of choice for the 4-year-olds.
So we still have money for that? The grant hasn't...
It's a new grant that just started, and I actually got an email today about we need to get another steering meeting going. So yes, we are still actively working on that.
Thanks so much for all your work. To me, it's critically important.
Yep.
Thank you, Ned. Anybody else have any questions or comments?
I would just like to shout out to you, Sheila, to the program that you have built, the staff that are working in the program with, both the teachers and the family support workers and family connections workers. I've been so impressed with it, and this is such a vital, critical part of our equity discussions, and it relates to everything that we've talked about, everything we just talked about with gifted education, getting these kids on an equal playing field. And you're doing such important work, and you're doing it so well. Appreciate it.
Thank you. Dr. Atkins?
I again echo that. Thank you so much for all of your work. Rachel, thank you for being here tonight. Our preschool program is vital to the continued success of our students, so thank you for all that you've done to get this going and the way you interact not only with our local partners, but also with our state partners. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the proposed school board meeting schedule. Dr. King.
Good evening again, Madam Chair, school board members, and Dr. Atkins. As an item of discussion, I would like to present the 2019-2020 school board meeting dates from August until June.
Thank you. Anybody have any comments or questions around the meeting dates? I think this is an item that they would like to see action on. So I'd love to, if there are no objections, maybe we could move the meeting dates.
I move for Ned, you're pondering.
Well, just looking at them, and I assume somebody's looked at it versus calendars, and it looks like we got a couple exceptions that are based on calendar issues, so yeah, I'm happy moving forward.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you, Dr. King.
Thank you.
Are you on the next one too? This is the proposed student fees, fines, and charges fee schedule?
Absolutely. As an item of discussion, I would like to present the fee schedule for next school year. And if you, just to let you know, it's the same price amounts that were listed last year.
So there's been no changes?
No update. This is the finalized draft, and there are no changes from last year represented here.
Anybody have any questions or comments related to this particular item?
Yes, it apparently is working well, that people feel like that, particularly with the breaks for free and reduced lunch kids, that it's working out all right, that
yes,
feel comfortable stepping forward to get the breaks. And
I found out where the communication goes out for announcement of the fee. Families are able to note on their sheet or provided the contact information for Find the Arts coordinator, for example, if it's something with marching band, but there are ways to discreetly communicate that what they're comfortable with.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments?
I may have asked this question last year, so forgive me. Was just curious with the instrument rental and marching band and those types of fees. I mean, do we have any sense that there's anybody who might not be free and reduced lunch, but might not,
Yes.
who is opting out of continuing with some of those programs because of that? And how do we deal with that?
The example that I have is with Charlottesville High School. Dr. Irizarry shared with me this week that they do, for example, will use parking fees for all of their students. If there's a snack need or something that any Charlottesville High School student, like prom, maybe there's assistance that's needed with prom, that's the funding that they would use, and the parking fee is listed here, but that's an example of how they make sure all students' needs are met regardless of need as free or reduced lunch for all students.
Ms. Bryant, can I ask a question? Do you think that the students are well aware of the free and reduced kind of exceptions to these fees? I just want to make sure that if we need to be more effective in our communication strategies.
So I think the students who have kind of been conditioned or trained to do that from their families, like from the beginning. So like, for example, going to Venable, like they offer vouchers, but your family has to seek that out. So I feel like the students who have been doing it for a long time know to like, oh, I can't afford this, can you help me? I don't believe that it is very front and center, but I already spoke with Dr. I about this on Thursday. I think a lot of times students just think their parents can pull money out of anywhere, and I've been guilty of this myself. So I think that is true. That's why, I feel like we as students don't always think like, oh, I don't have this money, and so our parents are not going to deny us the money. So I think we should be having more conversations about like wealth gaps and stuff like that, and I mean that will come as, you know, you take different classes, you learn about things like that. But I think, like, even when we set prices for prom, like, taking into mindset, like, the whole sliding scale method, and I brought that up to Dr. I about, like, maybe someone can afford, like, a $5 prom ticket, but not $25. And it doesn't have to be 100% free so that we can subsidize the cost and everything, but I think more sliding scales would be nice.
I appreciate your input. Thank you. That's helpful. Dr. King, thank you so much for your presentation. Any other questions or comments for Dr. King? Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks. That will be back on the agenda for next month. Okay. We are now back at another opportunity for the public to speak. Nobody, since I have the sheet, nobody has signed up since. So who would like to speak? And I encourage you to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and please clearly state your name and address.
Boris.
Hi, Mr. Rose, thank you for coming.
I come here, one, to support the Student Youth Council recommendation on equity. They did a fabulous job.
They did.
I just hope that sometimes when people do a job like that or analysis like that, we put it on the shelf and we forget about it. But I think the point you made about the timeline, I think it's very important. And I wish you would tell them what you cannot do because of state requirements or some things that cannot do, so they can understand why this can't get done. Other than that, your timeline, the follow-up, you said you're going to do it. We're holding you to that because we think that you are trying to do the right thing. Also, I'm so happy to see about that history of gifted education because we all knew in the black community there was something wrong. That the white kids got into the gifted program and the black kids didn't. And just like Wade said, Wichita, my granddaughter, is in the gifted plan, and she looks around and she says, Grandpa, there's something wrong because I'm the only one in that program. And they have a systematic way of excluding excluding, I say, black kids in Wichita too. So, as he said, it's not the only place that we have this situation, but at least we're stepping up and having the discussion and doing something about it. It was surprising to me that when they were talking about, the young kids were talking about the youth council recommendations, they mentioned that there's one teacher who tried to push them into a lesser class. And which I think is, we know now, that that teacher should be talked to because our kids should be allowed to take the advanced classes, whoever that teacher was. And so it's going on now today, so we're aware of it. Now it's time to do something about it. And also the preschool. Now we don't ask our kids, are you high school ready? The things we should be asking our parents, is your kid pre-kindergarten ready? Because when you get there after pre-kindergarten and you start taking those third grade exams and tests, that's what's going to follow them for the rest of their lives. I understand there's one young lady who did excellent on her third grade test, and now she's getting letters from Harvard, Columbia, and some other schools because they are identifying kids at the third grade level now. So it's very important that we prepare our kids for the pre-Ks so they can get that start, because they never catch up once you get through the third grade exam and a fourth grade exam.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Morrissey. 3 minutes.
Okay.
Flew by.
I just want to say I appreciate everything you're doing, but one thing left is Venderman. In West Haven, we have the black kids being busted away from their local schools, and they should be going to Vanderbilt, but you're sending them somewhere else. You should look at that too while you're looking at these other 3 things. You know, they should be going to their local schools, as the preschool said before. Well, thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Burse. Any other members of the public would like to speak?
Good evening. It was a great conversation today. D.D. Smith, 2652 Jefferson Park Circle. So many important things got brought up, and it's not surprising that whenever a group, whether it's like the reporters from New York Times or often UVA people, sometimes legal people, if they start to look at our schools, they're often told to come to me. And I know I'm going to get blamed for giving them information. I didn't need to give those New York Times reporters anything. They had it all. They came with information, and that's a really common denominator with most of the people who really do take these intense looks. It's out there. It is so obvious, and Quest is always up there. The tragic literacy rates for African American children are all up there. The busing of the West Haven children, and then those seats going to predominantly white parents who have choices when other people don't have. Those are the things that always rise to the top. I'm just telling you from other people. It's clearly things that I've talked about a lot, but those things are just so in your face in terms of unjust. So, I hope you do. I support the speaker who just came up, is that there are other really important issues that it's time to tackle, and you can kind of group them all together and really, hopefully make an impact. One last thing is, do please ask the question as you're exploring preschool, is to the retention rate for our preschool children, and how many of our children who are, and I've talked to you about this last time, who are going on to high school actually had the benefit of our preschool. Just as you assess the rate of important things, it's not going to be your silver bullet, because most of our children later on, although in that 8th grade class I've talked to you about, 30% of those children went to your preschool, which is actually, I think, a pretty high number. So, anyway, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. Would anybody else like to speak tonight? Thank you to Mr. Burse and Ms. Smith for their comments. Shall I move on to the next item on the agenda? Okay. I'm going to go to comments from the board, and this time I'll start, I don't know, with Ms. Bryant. Is that okay?
Sure. Yeah, so I really appreciated the presentation by Ms. Thornton, and another thing that I think we should think about when we're talking about equity too is how students shift around and how they leave during Walker and Buford, because a lot of times we don't think about the fact that students kind of work their way up, so like even if they're not in Quest in elementary school, but when they get to Walker or Buford, they get into those honors classes and they take those seats, and then meanwhile other students are going to Village, whatever, Covenant, whatever, you know, nice schools, and then they come back 9th grade year, and then all those kids who've worked hard to get into those classes are pushed back out because there's not enough room. And I've actually seen it happen. A few members in BSU, we were talking about it earlier, and there were about 2 students who were in like honors English when we were in 7th and 8th grade, but then when we got to high school, they were not in N-level, they were just in academic. And so we have to think about how like our school is like, it's like a retail store. Like people decide what they want to opt into, what they want to buy, what they want to consume, and then they leave if they don't want it. And so I just hope that our students who aren't able to afford to bypass Buford or bypass Walker are still afforded the same opportunities. Thank you.
That's a great point. Thank you so much. And one I think that we will carry with us as we move forward. Ms. Torres?
Thank you for all the comments. Ms. Bryant, thank you so much for being with us the last 3 meetings. And as Ms. Purrier said, so much better. We know there's great things, and I look forward to kind of keeping in touch and watching the exciting things that lie ahead of you. So thank you for everything that you've brought to us, and we'll continue to do that, I'm sure. I just wanted to touch base and actually, Sherry, when you mentioned that you, Dr. Kraft, that you were going to be part of the education affiliated with the Paramount, it triggered a couple of things that I think are important. Again, educating our community, but there's some powerful people in our community. Mr. Lorenzo Dickerson is a film writer, works very closely with a lot of other people in the community on history and making films, and he is actually, I believe this summer, putting a film out, and it's called 3rd Street Best Seats in the House, and it is actually about the Paramount and the side entry to the Paramount, which was for African Americans. So, I think there's so much like that in our community going on that, again, educating students, educating community members. Again, at the Tom Tom Festival, another one of the forums, I believe, had Lorenzo and Miss Tanisha Hudson and Sarad, who are doing a film and a movie, A Legacy Unbroken, the story of Black Charlottesville. So again, another opportunity. I spoke to Miss Evans, who is continually trying to reach out and make contact with just these wonderful resources that we have right here in Charlottesville. Miss Nia Bates, who's just has so much knowledge up at Monticello, so I just encourage all of us to continue to bring these types of things to the school board and to talk about them in public and share them out. So thank you, and thank you everybody else for everything, and Maggie's gone, but thank you for sharing and bringing what you did. And Dr. Atkins, thank you for your leadership. I look forward to hearing and supporting you with these changes and what this new program will look like. So I fully embrace that. So thank you.
Mr. Wade?
Yeah, I just wanted to add, that as I went out to use the restroom after our last discussion, what I heard from people saying to me and saying to each other about our discussion and the presentation was, wow, powerful powerful. That's what I heard a lot. So I'm glad that we're having this powerful discussion, and I'm looking forward to further discussion on it. And as for Ms. Bryant, I look forward to, I hope that we were nice to you, because someday I think I'm going to be working for you, so I hope you thought we were nice to you, so, boss lady. So congratulations and wahoo wah.
Yes, indeed.
Ms. Ferrier?
I'd like to let everyone know that, again this year, the City of Promise will hold its Game Changer Luncheon. And the purpose of that luncheon is when the City of Promise recognizes people within the community, stakeholders, school board members, teachers, parents, just people that are in our community that have helped to make a difference, not only with our children and the footprint, but with children in the Charlottesville community. And it will be May 30th at the Carver Recreation Center. There is not a cost to attend, but you need to register, so we'll know how much food to have there. And it's on their website. But if you're interested, you can also see me as a board member, and I'll be happy to submit your names, members of the Charlottesville City School Board. And I would also like to take this opportunity to thank our board chair, Jennifer McKeever. And I want to thank you, Ms. McKeever, for providing an opportunity for each of us to attend her weekly meetings with our superintendent. Although I'm the vice chair, I'm not always able to be at everything. And Ms. McKeever has instituted a practice that if I'm unable to be there, she reaches out to each and every board member to see if they are available. And so for Ms. McKeever and Dr. Atkins to take time out of their busy week, every week, to meet, and to allow us an opportunity to be included, that is another indication that we should all recognize we are about inclusivity, transparency, and equity. And Ms. McKeever, thank you.
Well, that's very nice. Thank you, Ms. Ferrier. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Yeah, wow. We're almost done. I am so appreciative of the quality of the conversations that we're able to have here as a school board and with our community and with the people who come forward to offer their ideas and opinions. It's really very valuable. Diana, good luck. Thank you. Thank you very much for, what you've given to us, what you've given to the school and to the community, and I wish you lots of fun. In addition to, doing important things, you got to have fun. So have fun. And finally, I just want to mention that today is Holocaust Remembrance Day, and I think it's just important to remember that hatred and bigotry take many different forms, and it's something that, it's on my mind a lot, and it's very much alive in the world today.
Thank you, Dr. Kraft. Mr. Bryant?
First, I want to thank all of you all who came out tonight for our school board meeting. It was quite a powerful meeting tonight. Maggie Thornton's presentation was just simply outstanding. It took me back to the 1960s when I attended segregated schools, and when we integrated, I thought about how we were treated, less than human. And I'm going to put it like that. It was a struggle in integration, but thanks be to God, those teachers at Jefferson School said failure is not an option. So they sort of prepared us, but that was just a shocking moment when we transitioned because they assumed that we were not prepared. So thank you, Maggie, for that outstanding presentation. I will be attending the non-Preston Scholarship banquet next month recognizing the new scholars who will be recipients of that scholarship. I serve as an advisor for Ron and I both piggyback on Dashae Smith, who's currently at Howard University, so I serve as an advisor for her, and she's doing very well at Howard University. We keep in touch by text. Took me a while to, get into the texting, but I finally got my rhythm going. Ron and I also sat on a panel. Dr. Betsy Devereaux, it was at the YMCA.
Oh, yes.
You and I sat on that panel. They invited us to come speak to her class members about issues surrounding equality and equity in education. And I received a response from her saying she was very thankful that we came and we provided a lot of valuable insight to her students in that class. Next month, I have been invited. Last year I did a video called Teachers in the Movement. As you all know, many teachers, African-American teachers in the 60s were involved in the civil rights movement. So I did a video, and Dr. Eldridge is in charge of that Civil Rights Oral History Project. So I've been invited to sit on the panel next month at UVA. So I'm looking forward to that. Zion, this is your last meeting. Well, this is my advice to you.
You said what?
I know you're ready to graduate. Phase 1. Phase 2, summer. Phase 3, fall. So, welcome to Wahoo Wahoo land, and you are going to be working, young lady. Thank you for all your contributions to the board. Very inspiring. Thank you so much. And Dr. Atkins, it's just been an emotional night. I've been up and down all night long. So thank you for your leadership and your mentoring and just the board. Thank you, board members. This is a great group. I couldn't think of a better place to be than here with you all. Thank you, Jennifer, for your strong leadership. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. Mr. McGee?
Yeah, and I also just feel blessed to be back on the board at this time when there's so much energy, community energy around solving some of these problems we've been working on for a long time, and to have this youth group come here and having had 25 focus groups with other students and the Black Student Union putting a lot of thought into their recommendations, and Ms. Thornton, it just seems like there's a lot of things coming together now with a lot of energy and a lot of good thought around these difficult problems, and I'm just happy to be part of the energy here, and I'm also appreciative of the fact that I got to cross paths with you a little bit, Ziana, and good luck in the future.
Thank you. I am going to turn it over to Dr. Atkins for her superintendent comments.
Thank you, Ms. McKeever. The first recognition I'd like to give is to our very own Ziana Bryant. Congratulations, the Emily Currick Luncheon, the winner. That shows that your leadership is not only recognized within the school division, but outside of the school division. We're very proud of you. Thank you for your work, and it doesn't hurt to get $30,000 as a way of saying thank you. So congratulations to all that you have done. It was a pleasure being there with you, and also congratulations to your grandmom and your mom for all of the work that they have done over the years to get you to this place. You've been a joy, and thank you for being a representative on the school board and all the work that you've done. Sometimes work can be painful and long and hard, but in the end, if it brings about the needed change, then it's worth it. So thank you. Keep that in mind. Thanks so much. Congratulations to Dr. Edwards. He was recognized on April the 16th as the recipient of the MS Dinner of Champions Award. Dr. Edwards was a former school board member, former school board chair, and also mayor of the city of Charlottesville. It was a pleasure to be at the ceremony with him, and also to hear our board member, Mr. Wade, give comments about Dr. Edwards, and Mr. Wade was really the comic that night. It was a pleasure hearing him present. So thank you to everyone, and congratulations to Dr. Edwards. Also, I had the pleasure of sitting on the Virginia State University Dean's Advisory Board, and we recently had a meeting, and I so appreciate Dean Willis, Walter, and the Associate Provost, Dr. Muriel Hawkins. They did a tremendous job in pulling the committee together and talking about issues and programs that are important to not only the Virginia State community, but also to communities well beyond Virginia State University. They will be offering this summer a number of workshops that we're planning to invite some of our students to participate in, and also workshops for our teachers. So thank you to Virginia State for being a leader in preparing our teachers for the future. Virginia State will also be coming before the Share Board in just a few weeks to ask for permission to move into a four-year program for our teacher prep program, and to also be a part of teachers being able to select education as a major again, which is an important step forward. So they anticipate that they could double the number of students that they will have in the teacher prep program, which will do a tremendous service to the pool of applicants that we have, brown and black applicants that we have to select from with our teacher complement. Also, congratulations to City Schoolyard Garden. There were many, many, many awards that were presented at the most recent event. Thank you. There were outstanding educators, a number of them, outstanding partners, and outstanding volunteers. So thank you so much to all of our Schoolyard Garden participants, our director. Thank you for all that you do to make sure those gardens continue to grow. And thank you to Computers for Kids. It was a pleasure to visit with them. I went over on the 29th of April and spent a great deal of time and was taken on a tour of the facility by Justin and Nadia. Both of them. Justin is a freshman, I believe, and Nadia is a senior. But both of them say that when they leave school, going over to Computer for Kids is one of the highlights of their day. They can go to the center and stay at the center until 6 o'clock in the evenings, and they can actually go 5 days a week. The representatives at the center told me that Nadia has received over 3,000 hours of mentoring since she entered the program, and she entered as a 9th grader. So congratulations to Computer for Kids and Nadia and Justin for their participation. We will be partnering with them to see if we can collaborate on course offerings where we might, for example, offer AP Computer Science here at school. They may take the second part of that, which would be a problem-based computer science activity for the students there at the center, and together we can award credit to the students. So Dr. I is working on that right now, trying to develop that curriculum and partnering with them. So thank you to Computer for Kids and the partnership that we have with them. Congratulations to Rodney A. Robinson, a graduate of Virginia State University, was recently named the 2019 National Teacher of the Year. We are so proud of him. Congratulations to Rodney Robinson, the National Teacher of the Year. Rodney teaches at Verdi Benford Education Center, which is a juvenile detention center, and he truly makes magic happen there at the center. The students love him, the parents love him, and the students thrive under his tutelage. So congratulations to Rodney. He represents not only the Commonwealth, but the nation, and he has done a fine job in representing the profession of education. So thank you, Rodney. I actually will be having dinner with Rodney on Sunday.
Nice.
Looking forward to that.
Please give him our congratulations.
We
We're so
will.
proud that one
Yes,
person.
from one Virginia State alum to the next. Please congratulate him on behalf of the Charlottesville City School Board. Thank you very much.
I will absolutely do that.
He can come here anytime. He is invited anytime.
Well, why do you think I'm having dinner?
He's getting a lot of haters right now, I think.
Yeah, yes, I like this one.
This is home.
Gotcha.
The Commonwealth is home.
Congratulations again to Denise Johnson. She's done a tremendous job at the City of Promise, and it is our delight and our honor to welcome her aboard. Is Denise still here with us? She is. No pressure. No pressure. Denise will
You
be...
do all the follow-up from tonight?
Yes, her first job.
Actually, I met with her today, and she has a list already. It's growing up. We'll do a great job with that. We welcome her aboard officially. Her official first day will be on May 15th. So we're looking forward to bringing her on board and looking forward to the great work that she's going to do for our school division and for our community. Denise, welcome. Looking forward to working with you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
One more.
One more.
She says one more.
You found one more.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations to our Charlottesville High School magician. Okay.
Musicians.
Yes, turn it around here. Congratulations to our high school musicians. They earned top honors at the Atlanta Festival. I did have a conversation with Laura Thomas, and she said it was an absolute honor to be with the students, and the collaboration was amazing. And to bring home all of those awards and accolades, it was just a pleasure for her and the other band and that choir director to be there together and to engage in that collaboration. It just shows the strength of our arts program in Charlottesville.
Did the orchestra go to their first competition?
And they brought home the championship. I will also remind everyone that our wonderful Laura Thomas, as director of our CHS orchestra, has now is the proud mother of the director of our Walker orchestra. What's her daughter's name? Emily Thomas Waters. Emily Thomas Waters is our director of orchestra at Walker.
I don't think it's hyperbole to say that literally the orchestra blew away the judges.
Blew them away.
So
that's a great way of
it was
putting it.
They haven't been seen since.
It was really remarkable, apparently. The judges were very impressed.
One little side note, your executive director of C4K is a CHS alum, Kayla, and C4K worked with the PEF Foundation. We collaborated, so the newly renovated, updated website for PEF was done by the students at C4K.
Nice. So impressive. Thank you, Kayla.
I forgot to mention that Charlottesville Choir, Mr. Cook's choir, did have their spring concert, and so I was able to attend that, and my goddaughter and all the seniors, not all the seniors, but some seniors did their solos, and so it was a surprise solo that was performed by my goddaughters, Claire Powell, so yes, that was very special. And also, a reminder, please, I've got tomato plants back here, so everybody grab one from City Schoolyard Garden. Thank you.
Thank you. Also, again, I echo and thank all of the presenters tonight and those who spoke at public comment. Together, we are going to make a difference. Thank you to Maggie Thornton for coming and her wonderful presentation. Together in this community, we can look forward. Whether another school board or another superintendent made the decision to respond, this school board and this superintendent will respond. So thank you so much for all of your support and your help.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. Dr. King, is there any work session wrap-up besides accountability and timelines, and we will follow? Okay. Thank you. The upcoming meetings, it's probably in my folder. May 31st and June 1st, we will be at retreat at the Hilton Richmond, Broad Street, starting at 3 o'clock on Friday and starting at 8:30 a.m. on Saturday. There will be graduation on June 6th at 7 p.m. at JPJ, which is, I have to say, one of the best things about being on school board. I don't know, it's just a really remarkable, and so, if you want some feel-goods, come on over to the JPJ on that day, because it is a great event. And it's brief. Get all that good feelings real quick. Anyway, and then we're having a school board meeting, which unfortunately I will not be at, but Ms. Purrier will be our chair that day for next school board meeting, which is 5 p.m. Here on June 13th. So, June 13th, that's the Thursday, because graduation is on the 6th, we're having our school board meeting the following week. Miss Bryant's going to be following her around, making sure she gets there.
What's he do? Which one? Which one should I put in? Tell me quick.
So, hearing no objections, we stand adjourned for a closed session immediately following.